Good evening, welcome. Thank you for being here. The City of Southport Board of Aldermen meeting, August 10th, 2023, is now called to order. I want to welcome all those in attendance, as well as those who are watching virtually. I want to thank our board for your attendance tonight. Welcome back, Alderman Alt. Good to see you. And Alderman Tom Lombardi talked to me last week. He had knee replacement surgery yesterday, his left knee. He is doing very well. It's amazing that when he moved down here 2 weeks into his stay in Southport, he had his first knee operated on. Same surgeon, did very well. And the second time, he noted how much easier it was. Well, 10 years of technology and improvement and everything has made a huge difference. So he's doing well. He went home this morning. I saw him yesterday at the hospital. He looked great, felt great. So if you need some knee surgery or any type of orthopedic surgery, Dozier Hospital is the place to go. And I have
that's a shameless
plug. I have Ms. Harper to also say that as well. So thank you. And thank you, city staff, for being here. Madam Clerk, thank you. City Manager, thank you for the agenda and very robust agenda. Randy, thank you and your staff for putting it on the airwaves. Our invocation tonight, I'm very happy to introduce Pastor Taylor Mills. He's the new pastor at Trinity United Methodist Church. Very happy to see you, sir. And this will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So all of you that can, please stand.
Okay. Let us pray. Almighty God, we give you thanks for the opportunity to gather, to do the work and business of the community. We ask your blessing upon the leaders, that they would have wisdom in all decisions, and we thank you for the opportunity to be among neighbors. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for the opportunity. It's nice to meet all of you and see some of the Trinity people here too.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Mills. Thank you for being here. So before we get to public comment, just want to let our citizens know we had if you were not here, didn't see, we had an excellent workshop last week. We did transitional housing. We had a spokesperson from Habitat for Humanity. We discussed homeless in Southport. And our town hall on homelessness in Southport will be August 31st, 9 a.m. All of our aldermen wanted to attend, so we had to get a date that everyone could be there. So that's the date that we have. So we look forward to that. It'll be presentations and our police and update on what we're doing, and hopefully an update tonight on what has transpired. We also heard from the Cape Fear Rural Planning Organization, which is under the Cape Fear Council of Government, and this is an important relationship for the city, and we look forward to working with the Council of Government and the Rural Planning Organization. So we had an excellent workshop. This evening, we have 2 public hearings. There will be no vote on those 2 hearings. We have 2 special recognitions. We have 2 closed sessions, and we have a presentation by Up Your Arts. So we have a very full agenda tonight, and we also have conditional zoning is on the agenda, and there will be a discussion and vote. So we also have ABC appointment, stabilization concerning West Bay Street, and selection for a contractor for the cemetery maintenance. So all very good things for our city. So next up will be item D, public comment. Madam Clerk.
Kathy Cabral.
Good evening. I'm sure that my comments will echo the thoughts of many who are sitting here tonight. And these preceded the mayor's comment about setting up a town hall. So with that as background, but here's my question. What's happening in Southport? We have itinerant, arguably mentally ill people sleeping and defecating in our parks and behind our public buildings. Some in cars are parking and sleeping outside of neighborhood homes. They are using public and private restrooms, frequently frightening staff at our churches. These people are not local workers who pay taxes and cannot afford to live here. They're vagrants. They are a threat to the public safety, and our public servants do not need to befriend, feed, or shelter them. They need to enforce the ordinances that are on the books and move them to facilities that have the mental health services required. If ordinances need to be strengthened, they should be, and immediately. We do not need to create a homeless shelter in Southport. Seeing what has occurred in other cities who let a homeless problem get out of hand should make addressing this issue one of the highest priority for this group. Think of the prospect of a tent city on the lawn at Fort Johnston. Brunswick Electric surveys of the right-of-way conflict dramatically with homeowner surveys. Does the city understand that stakes with flags are being planted inches from homes, not from property lines, from homes? Are homeowners not able to rely on the surveys conducted when they purchase their properties? Another issue, we've lost another senior employee of the city after only 10 months. We raised salaries in order to attract and retain talent. We are hiring consultants left and right. Should we hire a consultant to help determine why turnover at the city is so high? Our sewer system remains a problem. Our water is not healthy. Many are resorting to installing whole house water filters rather than continue to drink or bathe in city water. That is now incredibly expensive. Our roads are pothole riddled. Meanwhile, complaining about the vagrants and concern for personal safety sees one accused of lacking compassion. Homeowners who beautifully planted rights-of-way, which make walking in Southport so appealing, are harassed as the city tries to solve its parking problem. We all know that we don't own that space, but we maintain it. If the city would do as good a job, then do it. Given the current state of our roads and waterfront, I wouldn't expect it. And don't get me started on the Canada geese. The city's challenges are growing. Please come up with a plan to prioritize public safety, public health, and property rights. There's a lot of expertise in the city among the citizens. If you need to form partnerships with them in order to come up with solutions, I would encourage you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Susan Delaney.
Hey, Ms. Delaney, and those of you that are speaking, please state your name, your address, and your topic. Thank you. Make sure the microphone is on.
My name is Susan Delaney, and I live at 304 West Street. If that address does not ring a bell, then let me refresh your memory. It's the address of one of the properties that has been the topic of your discussions about right-of-ways. It's the property on the corner of West and Caswell with the beautiful landscaping in the right-of-way, where numerous times a day, both citizens and visitors to Southport stop and take photos of their families. It's the property where people stop us daily to tell us how beautiful it is and how beautiful Southport is. It is not the property across Caswell where the right-of-way is dirt and weeds, where people walk their dogs and leave their poop because they don't think it matters, because the property is maintained by the city and it looks horrible. You, the people we elected, seem to have a vendetta against the citizens of Southport that take their time and money to help make Southport the beautiful town that it is. And to what end? To make Southport a giant parking lot so 5 more cars can park on the 4th of July and the rest of the year our city looks horrible? In one of your meetings, you actually discussed that citizens on West Street had made their property too pretty to park on. Is that really our goal? Get rid of the beautiful landscaping so we can make it ugly enough that people feel comfortable parking there? Is parking for visitors the top priority for Southport now? Does that come before a beautiful town in which we're proud to live? I can see our city welcome sign now. Welcome to Southport. Ugly enough to park anywhere? You also claim you want to make Southport the way it was intended to be by the founders. But the very property that you want to strip of this beautiful landscaping had plants on it when we purchased our property. There were all kinds of scrub bushes and unruly plants that were not maintained by the city. We simply replaced that mess with beautiful, well-maintained plants. And it's not just our property. If you look at photos of 100+ years ago, you'll see bushes and fences and benches in many of the places that you want to remove them today. Things like this make our town look like a place where people live, love, and call home. I'm here today to ask you to please stop this ridiculous conversation of removing landscaping, fences, chairs, benches, and other things that add charm to our town and actually save the city money since homeowners are maintaining it. I'm asking you to appreciate, not condemn, the love that the citizens of Southport have for this town and the care that we all take of the city's property. In closing, I want to address a statement that the city manager was quoted as saying in the Stateport pilot a while back. She stated that these people think that they own that property, speaking of the right-of-ways. That statement is not only true, but insulting. We know exactly where our property line is, and we have never laid claim to that right-of-way. We have always understood that if the city needed to dig up that area, that it would, and that it would be our responsibility to replace that landscaping at our cost. My question to you is, do you know where the city's property line is? Because we do. About half of Hillcrest Drive is on our property. While you seem intent to get our landscaping off of your property, we have never asked you to get your road off of our property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
John Delaney.
Well, my wife is a hard act to follow. But my name is John Delaney, and I also live at 304 West West. It's the blue house on the corner of West and Caswell. Thank you, Mayor and the Aldermen, for giving us this opportunity. I would like to also discuss the issue of the right-of-ways. As Alderman Alt said at the July 7th Aldermen's meeting, the amount of aggravation this is going to cause for the city is just astronomical. He is absolutely correct. You can hardly walk down the street without hearing someone say how mad they are about the proposals being discussed. This is an issue that's got a lot of people very upset and, in fact, distrustful of this board. However, I really appreciate Mayor Hayden's comments at this meeting where he said, let's see how we can come together and collaborate on this with our citizens. I heartily agree. So first, let's examine the reasons given for taking action on this issue. The first issue is the issue of safety. I believe most of my neighbors would agree that if there is a safety issue, then action must be taken to address it. If it is a serious, immediate issue, then immediate action must be taken. However, if it is a situation that has existed for a long time, the city should notify the property owner and allow a reasonable time period for them to remedy the situation. Following this reasonable guideline, I believe, addresses the safety issue. Second is the issue of utility projects. Again, I believe that most of my neighbors also would agree that if there is a need to dig along a right-of-way in order to install or repair utility lines, then they support that work. However, a similar guideline should be used. If it is a serious, immediate problem with the utilities, then immediate action has to be taken. However, most utility projects are scheduled in advance, and so the city should notify the homeowner and allow them opportunity to remove the obstacles. The point which we cannot support would be for this board to dictate that the homeowners cannot restore the property once the utility work is complete. As Alderman Alt said at the last meeting, this would be viewed as, quote, a draconian method of coming in here and causing mayhem when we don't have to cause mayhem. The third issue is that of parking. At the previous Aldermen's meeting, there was a lot of discussion about parking. Alderman Carroll described the landscaping on these right-of-ways when he said, "You'd never park on it because it's beautifully maintained." Alderman Davis commented on how these areas are so beautiful that visitors to Southport are reluctant to park on something that is so beautiful. I believe that having homes and yards that are so beautiful the visitors don't want to show disrespect, I believe that that's a good thing that should be encouraged, not villainized. For high volume days such as July 4th, other options such as additional shuttle buses should be used. You know, I don't have all the answers to that, but I agree with Alderman Allen that said there is more than one way to solve a problem. And folks, digging up and destroying our beautiful yards is not the solution. This city was once voted the happiest seaside town in America. If the board follows some of these draconian proposals that have been considered, I'm afraid that this board will be considered as the villains that have destroyed the charm of Southport, and you will have lost the confidence and goodwill of the people. Don't let your legacy be, as it was said by Joni Mitchell in her song, "They paved paradise and put up a parking lot." Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Linda Pukanis.
Hello, my name is Linda Pukanis, and I live at 119 North Lord Street in the wonderful town of Southport. So I'm very fortunate and blessed to know many people here. I didn't write out anything as detailed as you guys did, but I have to say that I certainly agree with the right-of-way issue. I mean, before we purchased our property, we had a survey done. I think most people in here know where their property lines are, and you know, I'm sorry for those people who don't and might say that they never knew it, but I mean, it's in the county records too, so I have no problem with the city needing where our right-of-way is. I know they might dig it up and then do what they need to do, and then we can always put it back. I mean, we maintain it, we take care of it. There was a tree that died and fell down on it like 8 years ago, and we went out and had the root system taken out and put a new tree in at our own cost. And I guess we shouldn't have done that looking at it because we didn't, although we did talk to the city about it. But we pay, instead of having a tiny tree, we paid more money to have a big tree because we thought it was important, and now it looks really pretty. But I'm just saying, I get it. You need it, you got it, it's yours. But afterwards, we might beautify it again, or at least put the grass back, you know. But anyway, I agree totally with what you guys are saying. So anyway, that's not why I'm standing here though, because, and you guys all know because you've received emails from me. And I was at the Friday workshop that was, you know, very educational. You know, we do have that wonderful center that just opened up that Sally Leonard is in charge of, and she's a very good speaker. And if you haven't checked the new Brunswick Partnership House out, you really should, and I would suggest consider supporting it however you can, because it's really quite a needed entity in Southport. So I'm here because, you know, I do live on Lord Street and I'm close to Keziah Park. I'm not going to go and spend a lot of time other than to say I'm very happy that there is a meeting on the 31st of August. I look forward to being part of the solution, but I do want everyone here to understand that this is not just a Keziah Park issue. I mean, this is everyone looking at the ordinances, you know, obviously with the city and the aldermen coming up with ideas to, you know, make sure the parks are closed dawn to dusk, make sure that they are being, you know, watched. None of us should be in the parks late at night, and really no one should be sleeping there either. And that is not because I don't care about the homeless, because I do, and I think everyone in this room probably does. And I would look forward to anything that we can do to contribute to helping people who are in that situation. But I want you to understand that the reason why we're upset is because we've seen things and heard things and experienced things that were threatening and were scary. Chief Coring had said, make sure you call 911 if there's an issue. And I witnessed across the street a lady yelling profanity and screaming at this woman walking a dog. And the woman looked at me like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And, what can you say to somebody other than, we're here, And as soon as that lady walked by, then these children ran into the park. So it's not just Keziah, it's not just by one person's house or other people's, it's the entire system. And I do know that you guys are going to look at it. And I do know, that the city manager has sent us the ordinance that exists. And I do understand that you didn't need to look at it like you do today in 2023. But I just wanted to take a couple moments to say how important I think it is for the welfare of the city to keep everybody healthy and safe, enjoying the community, and also finding those county services. I know there aren't many, but whatever we can do to help the people that do need help, while restricting use of the parks to not allow dangerous situations. And not all of them cause dangerous situations, but the ones I've seen and heard about are not good. So please, everyone, get involved, because it might be the park across from your house next time, or it might be your child running and listening to a bunch of profanity, or it might be you witnessing somebody bathing out of a water fountain. It's not cool. So these are issues, and thank you very much. I'm going to stop talking. I know there's a lot of people. Thanks.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Kim Cobb.
Hi, my name is Kim Cobb. I live at 107 North Lord Street, and it is very close to Keziah as well. I'm not going to take your time and repeat everything that Kathy and John and Susan and Linda said, because I would just be echoing that. What I am going to do is look you in the face and tell you we are afraid. We are afraid for our property. We are afraid for our personal being. We have watched situations that should never happen in any town, much less a small town like Southport. We are not prepared for that. I don't want to see my husband bathing on the street. Your husband, anybody's husband, you don't want to see me bathing on the street. There is trash. You know that they're urinating and defecating in places that should not happen, that we should be enjoying, that our children should be able to go to, that our visitors are there all the time. They should be able to walk down to Fishy Fishy or to walk down to American Fish Company and not watch people part in a white van that reeks of urine, that has chairs and camping equipment, dancing in the streets and mocking people that go by. Me in particular. Me in particular. So I am pleading with you, don't look at us as uncaring people. I am a retired kindergarten teacher with a public school system. I have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I have always tried to help. Out of my own pocket with that situation, with many situations too. I am a caring, humane, loving person. I am not capable of building a homeless shelter. I am happy to be part of that solution, but the solution is not sleeping in the streets of Southport and putting us and our property and our children, our neighbors in danger. We are pleading with you to help protect us. I would like to request that we have some type of community watch system. I know that that is something that might give us as residents a little bit of power and also request that a police officer be assigned to our Community Watch program so that we can once again feel more comfortable walking the streets at night with our dog. Let me just say too, I can pick up my dog and run. There are residents that can't do that. I worry about that. I see it all the time. The other thing that I recommend that you might want to do is some background checks. I know you can do that too. There is a tag on the white van that's parked here all the time, and let me mention, he's not from North Carolina, he's from Indiana. So, background checks prove to us that he is not a danger to us. I've heard enough and seen enough to believe that he indeed is. So please help us. Please help protect us, the citizens that have voted you in this in your jobs. We look to you for protection and support. So please help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Roberta Dozier.
Mr. Mayor and Board of Aldermen, I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm Roberta Dozier, a longtime resident of Southport on Westmore Street. I'm a widow, an active person in the community, a law-abiding citizen and a taxpayer, and very concerned of our safety downtown and the residents that we have been dealing with, the homeless, who are now calling Southport home. On behalf of myself, my 92-year-old sister-in-law that lives by herself across the street, home alone, and I'm concerned of the safety during the day and the night, and the vagrants that are now on our streets. Our parks have been taken up with residents all around town. I regularly walk my dog, have personally seen them exposing themselves, bathing in the water fountains at the Keziah Park, sleeping in the cars overnight, parking in parking lots at the library for extended periods of time to get internet access, changing clothes at the waterfront, sleeping in the gazebo at the Keziah and Franklin Square. The other day there was a young lady screaming profoundly and interacting with families walking down the street. Concerned also of the health issues that have been capable with their state of mind. It's a very sad situation. It could potentially be dangerous for those in her path. I am one who pays close attention to my surroundings, and it worries me to know that they may be observing me and others who live alone. I never know what they're capable of doing or in desperate times. I'm tired of worrying about the safety issues, that when I go out of the house, they may be following me and have also approached me for money and knocking on my door. We, the taxpayers, we know that there should be some resources that can help with this situation. And I don't like to live in fear, and I don't think that I should. So if we can be proactive to handle some of these problems, I'd like to keep Safe Haven, Southport, the safe haven for the many years and generations ahead. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Cheryl Daniel.
Good evening, and thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name is Cheryl Daniel. I live at 120 West Bay Street in Southport. Change the subject a little bit. I'm a Southport native, and I grew up here and have lived here except for various times when I was away that amounted to about 10 years. I'm telling you this because my memories, which are relevant to the subject I'm speaking about tonight. I am here with several concerned citizens who consider themselves friends of Franklin Square Park to ask your help in saving this park. For those of you who do not know the history of this park, it was one of the most beautiful parks of its size anywhere in the South. I and many of my friends and contemporaries have wonderful memories of happy times we had there in that park for many years. The park was so full of those magnificent live oaks, azaleas, camellias, and other shrubbery that when looking from House Street, you could not see through to the big two-story building that is now the art gallery. It was a true sanctuary where people could go to enjoy being surrounded by some of Mother Nature's best offerings. Unfortunately, that is no longer the case. Most of those magnificent live oaks need immediate attention, and the shrubbery that is left is in dire need of proper care. Those of us who remember the beauty of it feel that Franklin Square Park is in a truly deplorable state. We are fully aware that with all of your city projects and problems, you have your plates full, which should probably be more aptly described as platters full instead of plates. And we realize that we are asking you to take on another one. However, we simply ask that the restoration of Franklin Square Park be considered. The city provides several places and parks to enjoy the waterfront, tennis courts, playgrounds, as well as a dog park. With the growth in Southport and the whole surrounding area, a beautiful sanctuary is greatly needed. We have spoken to many, many people who would like to see the park beautiful again and who feel that it is a very worthwhile investment for all of our citizens, visitors, and many generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Joanne Potter.
Jean Potter. Welcome, Ms. Potter.
Thank you, and it's Jean. If I had known I had more than 3 minutes, I would have made this a lot longer. But anyway, I'm following up Cheryl's presentation. My name is Jean Potter. I live at 315 Burrington Avenue, and I'm a member of Friends of Franklin. Our mission statement is to save and preserve the history, health, and beauty of Franklin Square Park. Those of us that have been here all our lives or born and raised here remember how it used to be years ago. We recently sent letters to the mayor, each alderman, the city manager, Parks and Recreation, Forestry, the Historic Preservation Commission, DSI, and others. We met with the Historic Preservation Commission at their last meeting, and we were well received. We met with City Manager on Tuesday morning, and she was also very receptive to our thoughts and ideas. Along with the other history and information that we gave her information on a potential certified, and I underline that, arborist with whom she has already spoken. We met with Parks and Rec and Forestry on that same Tuesday and had positive conversations with each of those groups. There are others with whom we plan on meeting with in the future to share our mission. Our park is the oldest living thing in town, and unlike a lot of old people, the trees have no voice. They tell us they need our help, and we are their voice. That park was given to Southport, or Smithville at the time, over 200 years ago. The last major renovation was a WPA project in 1930. That's almost 100 years ago. It now desperately needs our attention and some much needed TLC. We realize that our goals are not something we can reach immediately, but with thoughtful planning, creative budgeting, and perseverance to obtain the desired end, our park can be returned to the beautiful, healthy space it once was. We ask for your support in attaining these goals, not only for ourselves, but for all of our citizens and for the future generations of our citizens and our many visitors who enjoy Franklin Square Park. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jean. Madam Clerk.
Francesca Slaughter. And if you all would, when you're speaking, if you could speak more directly into the microphone. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Aldermen, City Manager. My name is Francesca Slaughter, and I reside at 6272 Cattail Court. I'll make this very short and sweet because I know you guys have heard me ad nauseum tonight regarding the vote that you're going to be taking tonight on conditional zoning. And hopefully everybody in the room knows what conditional zoning is. I think that has the very real potential of completely changing the face of Southport. I am not a native here. I've lived here for 35 years. I'm 50 years old, and I married a cultured redneck from Eastern North Carolina. We have made our home here. We can't imagine living anywhere else. I was born and raised in Milan, Italy, and lived in Spain and some other areas, and this is truly the best place in the world for us. My 18-year-old son is right here in the audience. He's getting ready to start college with a degree in marine technology. We were talking about conditional zoning tonight before this meeting, and he said, Mom, he said, if this place becomes this high-density town with condos and overdevelopment, I don't think I want to live and work here after college. And I think that speaks volumes. So I just want to urge you all to please vote no. Please put the brakes on conditional zoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Bob Holden.
Mr. Mayor and Board of Aldermen, my name is Bob Holden. I live at 114 Westmore Street. I've lived in Southport full-time since 2020. My family, starting with my parents, has been in Southport downtown since the 1990s. Continuing with the right-of-way discussion. I have no skin in this game. Our yard does not violate the right-of-way. Part of the grandfathering ordinance modification presented last month will be voted on soon. I looked through the text. Section 1610B says, the right-of-way encroachments existing prior to the adoption date of this ordinance shall be permitted to remain so long as the encroachments do not interfere with the free passage of persons or vehicles or otherwise creates a hazard to the public. This sounds fine. It's the next part that concerns me. It says, until such time as the city desires to remove them. I feel that the homeowners who have done such a wonderful job beautifying the city and making it a place where tourists now seemingly come year-round need some rationale for this disruption, not desire. Multiple aldermen up here have said things like, all hardened structures must go, or if I had a magic wand, I'd get rid of all of it. This makes me very nervous about the sensibilities of this board on future votes. I'm uncomfortable allowing the city to make decisions based on desire. If you need to do a project in the right-of-way, burying cables, adding curbs, parking spaces, sidewalks, improving safety, then by all means go for it. But to amend the ordinance to allow the city to operate on desire seems to go against a stated goal of objectivity. One of the options the city is preparing for you to vote on allows for encroachments to be rebuilt after the city does their work. All the encroachments I have seen are beautiful enhancements to the city. I'd like the city to be a good neighbor themselves and allow them to put them back. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Shirley Sullivan.
Mayor, Board of Aldermen, City Manager, thank you for allowing me to speak. Shirley Sullivan, 5002 Seaward Court, and I'm talking about conditional zoning. I know you're prepared for the vote tonight. I have gone through the whole process, been to many of the meetings, and I understand that changing, updating a text amendment is a legislative process. Conditional zoning was asked to be looked at by the Board of Aldermen to the city manager last year, and the city manager asked the Development Services Director to look into it. All of the necessary procedures have been followed. The presentation to the Planning Board, the public input meeting from the Planning Board, a few revisions, and the Planning Board referred it to the Board of Aldermen. The Board of Aldermen had their public input meeting. Now it's up to the Board of Aldermen to vote. I want to remind everybody that there has hardly been any public support on the conditional zoning text amendment, and many questions have gone unanswered. Like, how much land is left to develop in Southport, and what potentially annexationable land is undeveloped that we could consider. The last vague comment that I read said many municipalities have adopted CZ. Where? It didn't say, it just said many. Well, per my research of Brunswick County, 7 of 19 municipalities have conditional zoning, but none with minimal guardrails that ours is suggesting. Most of them do correspond with the previous district that they were aligned with. Ours just has, I believe, height restrictions and maybe open space. Our custom zoning text amendment also says purely custom zoning district. That means each application that applies will probably be a custom zoning district if somebody applies for it. Southport is unique. We have much coastal charm, but how is conditional zoning relevant to our charming coastal town? I urge you to deny the conditional zoning text amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Karen Rife.
Good evening, Madam City Manager, Mr. Mayor, and Board of Aldermen. I am Karen R. Rife. I reside at 5980 Dutchman Creek Road. Look around this room. Be glad these citizens are as passionate about the future of Southport as you all are. We are growing at a rapid pace. And with that, questions, concerns regarding managed development are being asked and expressed. I respect the vast experience of the city staff and acknowledge that they were tasked with exploring and recommending conditional zoning for the future of Southport. Yet through all of the meetings, which I've attended most unless I was out of town, emails and personal conversations with elected officials, staff, a few questions have still not been answered. Why now? It was brought up originally in 2017 and was passed for commercial. What is out there now that is causing you all to look at it again for residential? CZ must be requested by the developer. Well, several meetings, people have said, well, you know, PUD, they go by whatever the zoning is, it's easier and blah. Well, then why would a developer ever ask for multiple meetings, multiple things to go through if they could basically get what they want if they do a PUD? So again, the last question would be, why would PUD remain on the books if we pass CZ? So I understand there's a legislative issue in here that we have yet to quite understand. Public comments are not a dialogue, I get that. Many times questions on this subject and others are asked and not answered. Citizens sign in. Active listening should be employed. And then you could follow up with a question asked by these citizens by contacting them after a meeting. So thank you. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
The next speaker is Eric, but I cannot make out the last name. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Eric Lapola. I live at 215 West Moore Street, corner of Caswell and Moore. And my current but least favorite view is the mass parking lot that is across the street and the vacant lots. So that's the subject of my presentation this evening. Give you a little bit of background. Back in 2021, the mayor, well, before that, the owners of the lots along Caswell and halfway Moore that surround the yacht basin are zoned residential. And back in late 20, the owners of those lots requested that they be rezoned commercial so they could use them for parking for their restaurants. So that measure went through the planning board, and several of us, all the surrounding neighbors and so forth, were successful in getting that request denied. So it was never granted. The zoning has not changed. And so, however, following that, the mayor said, well, we have to come up with a solution to the problem. So he convened a group of us that own properties around the area, and the Chiricos and the Swansons and myself and so forth. And we met and we addressed lots of issues regarding the yacht basin, traffic, congestion, beachfront erosion, and so forth. But the one thing that we came up with as a recommendation for the use of those residential lots for parking was to create a parking overlay district, which would allow the owners to use them legally for parking for their commercial purposes, with the following provisions: that there be marked entrances and exits, there be marked and controlled parking areas, there'd be lighting for safety, vegetative buffers along Moore and Caswell streets, and last but not least, dust control measures. So what's happened? The city has not established the overlay district per the recommendation of the committee and has not created the guidance so that they could legally utilize it for parking. The property owners have and continue to allow these lots for parking. The uncontrolled use of these lots has eradicated all the vegetation on the lots. I used to go walk across the street there and pick blackberries before the traffic made all that vegetation go away. So the situation right now is dust and erosion of sand causes me to clean my porches and my neighbors to clean our porches about every 2 months, at least. Sand erodes from that parking lot and washes onto the sidewalks and onto the street. And my least favorite sound every Friday morning is a street sweeper coming along and trying to get rid of it. But fortunately they do. The sand got so bad a couple months ago that I personally shoveled all the sand off my sidewalk along Caswell Street. 8 wheelbarrow fulls of sand had washed for erosion because of the situation on the sidewalk. I dumped it in the street, and fortunately the city eventually got rid of it. It took a couple of weeks. So on busy days, it's a safety hazard. I maintain that because of the parking lot orientation along Caswell Street and the large vehicles that are parked there, Caswell is no longer a two-way street during virtually every day of the week. We don't have a tourist season here in Southport anymore. It's 24/7 and it's 12 months a year. So it's a safety hazard, people going in and out of this uncontrolled parking area, in addition to all the previous problems. So I have a request. The city needs to create what the recommendation from the committee that the mayor established, the recommendation made was to establish his parking overlay district. So you just need to create an ordinance to do this, and then you need to notify the owners that they are currently not in compliance with their city code, and that they need in the short term to comply with those provisions until that ordinance gets in place. And the last thing is, get it all done as soon as you can. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Lois Gandy?
Thank you, Mayor Hayden and Aldermen and City Planner. Thank you very much for letting me speak at this time. I'm back, even though we've come to realize sometimes we just don't feel like we're heard. We're not heard as citizens, but like Tom Petty sings, I won't back down. Over 1 year ago, our grassroots group had this song playing when we had our first citizens meeting at Trinity United Methodist Church. Since then, this group that I really have the honor of being a part of has diligently researched, contacted government agencies, talked to numerous experts that have knowledge of our unique situation. I won't take a lot of your time because you've heard this over and over again from so many people. They have consistently told you to say no to conditional zoning. They have given researched opinions, gave you intelligent reasons why it is not a good idea for our small town. Our town that has, believe, a limited amount of buildable land of 5 acres or more. I think it would be helpful if we knew exactly how much buildable land we have 5 acres or more left in Southport. Perhaps if we knew that, we'd understand why this is such a top priority right now and the need for it to be pushed through. Things might be clearer to our citizens. We are a town that is pretty much built out. In closing, I urge you to listen to your constituents, the citizens that put their well-being in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Jim Gandy?
Good evening, Mayor Hayden, Board of Aldermen, citizens of Southport. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. Hearing all of the problems that have been raised here tonight makes me wonder, why would you even be considering something like conditional zoning, approving it, when clearly the citizens of Southport really don't want this? We have enough problems right here now to deal with. That being said, I'd like to go ahead and read a couple of quotes from an article in the Star News yesterday. The headline was, "July is the hottest month on record by far." July 2023 was Earth's hottest month on record by a wide margin. Not just North Carolina, not just the United States, Earth. July's global average temperature was 62.51 degrees, was 0.6 of a degree higher than the previous record set in 2019. Normally, global temperature records are broken by hundredths or tenths of a degree. So this margin is unusual. These records have dire consequences for both people and the planet exposed to even more frequent and intense extreme events. We should care about July because it's a record, but because it won't be a long record. It's a stunning record and makes it quite clearly the warmest month on Earth in 10,000 years. So you might want to say, what does this have to do with conditional zoning? It has everything to do with conditional zoning. Conditional zoning will allow more residential units than what the current zoning allows. That's the truth. And you can't deny that. No developer would come in and request for conditional rezoning if they didn't want to add more residential units than what the current zoning allows. So I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room, and that's Project Indigo. We all know they're going to come back. That's over 300 acres. What I understand, the way it's currently zoned, they would allow about 700 or about 500 residential units as it's currently zoned. We know they're going to come back and ask for more, possibly 200-300 more, and that might be conservative. My question is, when we're living on a very fragile environmental coast, why do we want to add more residential density when we know climate change is here? This isn't happening 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. This is happening now. I've been reading about climate change events going on around the world this whole summer. If you're living in a closet, that's the only way you wouldn't know about all the issues that are going on in the world dealing with climate change. That's the first thing I want to address. Second thing I want to address is a comment made by Alderman Allen last month about conditional zoning being vague. Well, I'm not sure whether you know much about the law, but I've been involved for over 50 years in patent law. And I know in patent law, vague is not a good thing. Not for the person that holds the legal rights to a document. Vague can be challenged. Vague can leave it open for people to have different interpretations as to what that vague language means. Does the city really want to put themselves in a position where they can be challenged legally by having vague language in a text amendment to conditional zoning? I can only hope that you have the good common sense to say, no, I don't think that's a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Jack Hamilton.
Okay, thank you, sir. We're glad you're here. Thank you for being here. Madam Clerk?
I have just one more comment to read that was submitted. Dear Board of Aldermen, thank you for again listening to citizens' concerns regarding the conditional zoning text amendment. Many residents understand this amendment and vehemently oppose it for good reason. This text amendment and its development flexibility have the potential to alter Southport in ways that are not in keeping with its current character or preservation and conservation objectives. Protecting and preserving Southport's character is the purpose of our UDO, which is scheduled for a budgeted overhaul. Hence, updating that UDO is paramount to any zoning ordinance changes that may dictate Southport's future before it is publicly reviewed, vetted, and planned. I urge you to deny the conditional zoning text amendment and dedicate your time to updating the UDO. This is the best way to ensure Southport's future as a small seaside town with adequate infrastructure, respect for its fragile ecosystem, and care for its citizens. And that was submitted sincerely from Dr. Karen Beardsley, Quasney, and family.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in attendance that didn't sign up that would like to speak? Anyone here that has spoken and wants to amend their comments, you're certainly welcome to before we... Okay. So I am...
Mr. Mayor, I believe that we're at the point where we're about to vote on the acceptance or not of the agenda. Am I correct?
Well, no, I had a remark first before
Well,
that, but we will get to that, yes, absolutely.
Okay, I have a motion on that.
Okay, absolutely, yeah, the next will be approval of the agenda. There's an amendment that I'll have for it, and you may have as well. But I wanted to congratulate our citizens on these comments, your thoughtfulness, your willingness to be here. We hear you. Part of it, that we're working on the homeless situation, and in fact, we have ordinance in place, and we will add what we need to, and we have our town hall scheduled for August 31st. I know it's 3 weeks off, but still, we're ready, and we're working on it. And also in terms of Friends of the Franklin Square Park, thank you for your beauty and representing that beautiful park as well. On our agenda tonight, we have a contract proposal with a maintenance care for the cemetery. So that will help free up our plant services for maintenance of the parks, give them more time for the parks. So we're working on that, and we'll work on the other issues as well. So thank y'all for that. So item E, approval of the agenda, and Madam Alderman Lowe Davis, you said you wanted to make a motion?
Yes, thank you. I move that we remove item 2 from the regular agenda, discussion and vote on conditional zoning.
And I'll second it.
Would you like discussion on that?
No, I would like to add, also make a motion that we add a proclamation for the Coast Guard. Yeah, I know, but I'm just letting you know that's what I was going to say before I was, anyway. So yeah, so we can certainly, we have a motion and a second to remove for our citizens, item J2, discussion and board vote on conditional zoning text amendment. Motion by Alderman Davis and second by Alderman Alt. Is there further discussion?
My reason for making this motion is that over and over and over again, for a long time, we've been hearing from citizens who do not want this. And they have clearly researched, they know what they're talking about, they know what they want. At this point, it is, I think, extremely premature is the word, premature to do this, to even consider it until after we have completed the comprehensive land use master plan, and we could at that point, that's the point where I think it's reasonable to also review conditional zoning and see whether that fits. And a number of really good points were made tonight, one of them being, how do we know? We don't really know how much buildable land do we have that would be affected by conditional zoning. And I believe that we are in the process of trying to get a report from a good study of exactly that. But we're kind of stumbling in the dark at this point, I think. There's no reason to do this now. There's no hurry. There's nothing that is pressing this. So let's get this off our agenda and wait. There's no reason not to.
Any further discussion from the board on this motion?
Yes, I would like to make a comment, Mr. Mayor. So time and time again, we've said from this board that this was not tied to any particular development that may or may not come before us in the future. And we've had comments about trusting us. So I'm asking you to trust us that, at least for me, I can only speak for myself, that conditional zoning should not be tied to any particular development. The comprehensive plan gives you and us the opportunity to discuss what we want the city to look like and feel like. It's at the strategic level. And after we figured that out, Then we can look at the tools that we need to get to that plan. If we do conditional zoning now, and there's no hurry to do it, then we're going to have a bunch of patchwork projects all over the city that may not, in fact, be what the citizens want when we do the comprehensive plan. So, which is why we pushed for the money to go to Cobb to look at the first part, which is what Alderman Davis was talking about, is to how much land is still in play for this kind of discussion or discussions of anything for development, whether it's how big a substation we need to build, how much wastewater we need to have, how much water we need to have, all of those questions. You need to know what your max capacity would be, and we don't know that yet. So the COG part of it should be out relatively soon.
That's, that's what we're hoping, September possibly, but definitely by October.
Okay. And the comprehensive plan takes that piece. The reason why we voted on it is because it dovetails into the comprehensive plan to figure out what we want the city to feel and look like. So if we're going to do that, then we figure out what we're going to do. There's no particular rush now since it's not tied to anything. And we don't have all the pieces to understand how we want the city to look and feel like in the future. So tying it to the comprehensive plan, to me, makes the most sense. Now, how long does a comprehensive plan take? Because I'm sure you're going to hear some comments about that. I really don't know. We were told originally 18 months to 24 months. I don't know if you can speed that up. I don't know, because part of the comprehensive plan is listening to the citizens come in and tell us what you want us, the town, to look like. And we take all those pieces together, and your elected officials then make decisions for you based on all of that input. But probably 18 months. But it's just over the horizon, 18 months. And so that's where I would like it to be tied to the comprehensive plan.
Any further discussion or comments?
I'd like to at least have discussion on it. So I may go, well, no, I'll leave it on the agenda.
Yeah, I don't think we should remove it from the agenda. You need to decide whether or not there are multiple things. You don't have to pass it tonight. You can send it back to the planning board, or you can tie it to the comprehensive master plan. But to remove it from the agenda, I mean, that's an option. But go ahead and, I mean, if you want to discuss it while you're here, while you're on it, discuss it a little bit further, and then decide what you want to do. But if you'd like to, is what I'm saying. I mean, the topics here, all of these, they're all here. I mean.
Well, I disagree, obviously, because what is there to discuss? Because we are, as I said, kind of in the dark right now. We're kind of stumbling around thinking about, well, maybe it'll do this and maybe it'll do that. We don't have enough information to actually have a truly substantive and responsible discussion. That's why I want to remove it and return to it if we wish after the comprehensive plan is presented to us and we start having the review of that.
The planning board spent a lot of energy and time and has made a recommendation to us. It seems a little counterintuitive to me to not at least discuss it at the table. I certainly have opinions about it. I have answers to a lot of the questions that people posed. If we want to go to that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not comfortable just pulling it. I mean, pulling it for what? Towards what end? I mean, is there some? What's the purpose of pulling it? I guess. I mean,
what's the purpose of discussing it? I assume
you're just hoping it's going to go away magically on its own, but it's not. I'm not. So, I mean, my question is why, I mean, take it off the agenda and then do what? There's no plan, no thoughts about what else should be done or anything? I mean, we're just gonna...
Until we've got the comprehensive land use master plan.
We have a we have a comprehensive master land use plan.
It's what, 10 years out of date?
So are we gonna not have, for the next 2 years, are we gonna just put everything on hold? No rezonings, no text amendments? Well, unfortunately, you know, we can't just stop development approvals for 2 years. Yeah, so I'm not sure what, we can't put everything on hold for 2 years. That's completely unrealistic. I don't understand why we need to know exactly how much land there is. I mean, due to annexations, the amount of land could always increase. So it's kind of pointless to figure out what's inside the city limits right now. I mean, it can change. It's well and good to figure it out. I don't care, but nobody's indicated exactly what it means. I don't know what the meaning of it is or how it helps us.
Point in that we are in the dark.
But what are we in the dark about? That I don't get it.
We're discussing it now. Can we just call the vote whether we're removing it or not? Because we're litigating it here.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to support just removing it from the agenda. If we want to remove it with some sort of reasonable action moving forward to come to some conclusion, that's fine. But I don't understand just removing it. But that doesn't make any sense.
My understanding of the motion was to remove it and tie it to the comprehensive plan. So it's not just remove it and let's toss it in the trash, though I suspect there's a few people in the audience that might want to do that. That's not the point here. The point here is to remove it and tie it to the global idea of what we want Southport to look like, as opposed to doing patchwork program all over the city and then deciding that's not what we want.
Well, if I could be,
yeah, the initial motion was to remove it, so we need to modify
it. Not necessarily to automatically bring it up with when we're doing the review of the comprehensive plan, but to make that just remove it now, not talk about it, get back to it after we've got the comprehensive plan review underway. Then we can choose perhaps to review conditional zoning. What I don't want to see us do is table it and wait.
Just to clarify, Madam Davis, your thoughts are that for any text amendment that might be needed between now and the time that we get the comprehensive land use plan completed, that we just hold off on those?
No. There are many text amendments that we would consider that don't necessarily have anything to do with land use. Signs. We've got a sign text amendment under consideration tonight.
Well, when we reduced the height restriction to protect our downtown environment not long ago, just months ago, should we have held off on that too?
I think you're stretching this beyond what we're actually talking about.
I disagree with that. I think you're the one who's stretching it. I'm not gonna vote.
Yeah, you applaud, and that's good, but you shouldn't groan at a comment by an alderman or boo or anything like that. Yeah.
I don't have my mind made up on CZ. I wish it would go away. It's caused us a lot of headache. These folks have better things I'm sure they wish they were doing than waiting for us to vote on CZ. However, I'm as lost as y'all are. You know, I've got one side that's telling me it's the right thing to do, and I see all the positive benefits, you know, citizen input, how do we tailor a community to be exactly what it is we want it to be instead of what someone else makes it. I think those are all positive things, but I also understand the fear. You know, you got 6 people making a decision, and that doesn't feel good either. So we're here, we do hear y'all, we're listening. I want to have the conversation. I don't think this is going to go anywhere tonight, so if y'all wanted to leave, you know, you could stream live at home, but.
So, whoa. Whoa. So conditional zoning is not going to be passed as a, you know, amendment tonight, obviously. So the motion, I just want to make sure I have the motion correct, is that it was, the motion is to remove it off the agenda and have it become a part of the comprehensive master plan. Is that correct?
Let's use the word potentially, part of the review of the comprehensive master use plan.
Okay, so any further discussion before we vote on this? Okay, all in favor? Okay. All opposed? Okay, motion did not carry.
Is Alderman Lombardi voting by phone?
No. So it remains on the agenda when that item when we get to it. Okay. All right, and the motion, if you may, board, a proclamation for the Coast Guard tonight.
Is that in consent?
Yeah, no, it's on the agenda, to add it to the agenda. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second? Okay, second by Alderman Carroll. All in favor? Okay, any opposed? All right, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. Our next item is, I'll read the ethics statement. If any members know of any conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest concerning matters on the agenda, please so state at this time. Any conflicts? Okay, great. Thank you. Item F, approval of the consent agenda. We have a budget amendment, and that is for reimbursement for street lights for River Mist. The next, we have 3 set of minutes, Board of Aldermen agenda review from July 7th, Board of Aldermen special public meeting from June 28th, and then the regular Board of Aldermen meeting July 13th. And then item 5 is the Code of Ordinance amendment to Chapter 2 of the boards and committees, and this is concerning the cemetery committee. And what they have done, they've removed the requirement that you have to live within the city if you're a member of beautification or John Smith, and also reduce the number to 7. So with those in mind, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Okay, motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Item G, special recognition. First item is the Forestry Committee, a Tree Champion Award, and I'd like to call on Chairman of the Forestry Committee, Scott Lynn. And if there are other members of the Forestry Committee here, they certainly can join Mr. Lynn at the podium.
Am I on? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the immortal words of Monty Python, it's time for something completely different. We're here tonight, as they said, the Forestry Committee would like to present an award on behalf of our committee in the city to a citizen of ours. But I would like to just take 1 minute to explain about the award and the genesis of it. Several years ago, a founding member and longtime member of the Forestry Committee, Ms. Betty Timberlake, came into a meeting and said, you know, we really should have a way to recognize citizens within the community who are champions of what we do and the trees that beautify our town. And so we started the Tree Champion Award. I believe we only handed out 1 or 2 before, unfortunately, Miss Betty died, and the award kind of languished for a while. So last year, Marianne Huntley said, you know, we really need to bring that back. We've spent about the last 6 or 8 months working on the criteria and the requirements and how to go about the process in that. And I would like to invite all of you to go to our webpage on the city website and take a look at that. It has all the background on it, as well as the ability for you to make that recommendation of your neighbor or someone you know in town who, through their actions, their thoughts, their support, is helping us maintain this beautiful tree canopy that we have. So with that, if Mayor Hayden would like to come up and join me, and Miss Allison Schooler, if you'd like to come up and join us as our first recipient of the Rejuvenated Tree Champion Award. I'll let you give the award. Yeah.
All right. I'll read the award. For thoughtful design and placement of her home, as well as proactive efforts during its construction to protect the magnificent live oak on the property. August 10th, 2023. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everybody. Honestly, I'm flattered. Oh, sorry. I'm extremely flattered. Honestly, I really am. I love my tree. It's beautiful. I've had to build my house in the back garden. But thank you very much. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Who says I don't know how to clear a room? Thank you for that. Our next proclamation is concerning the City of Southport proclamation in celebration of the United States Coast Guard. And as I always try to coordinate with the State Port pilot, if you read the pilot this week, the picture of the way it was, and it was submitted by Kathy Johnstone, and this is a picture of the Coast Guard cutter, Eagle, that was docked at the city pier that was taken over 50 years ago, 1970. So make sure you see that. And Kathy Johnstone married a Coast Guard man, so it really fits in with our proclamation. Whereas the United States Coast Guard has a long and proud history of service to our nation, including in North Carolina along the Atlantic coast. And whereas the Coast Guard is dedicated to saving lives at sea and enforcing the nation's maritime laws. And whereas the United States Coast Guard is one of the oldest organizations in the federal government, until the Navy Department was established in 1798, it served as the nation's only armed force afloat. Whereas the United States Coast Guard was established on August 4th, 1790, when Congress authorized the formation of 10 vessels to enforce federal tariff and trade laws to prevent smuggling. Until the establishment of the United States Navy in 1798, the Coast Guard also maintained maritime navigational aids, including the nation's lighthouses, and inspected and licensed ships. And whereas the department was initially called the Revenue, Marine, and Revenue Cutter Service, until the name was changed to the United States Coast Guard in 1915. Whereas on the day the United States Coast Guard formation, 1915, there were approximately 255 officers, 3,900 warrant officers, and enlisted men manning a headquarters, 17 regional commands, 4 depots, the Coast Guard Academy, over 40 cutters, and 280 lifeboat stations. Whereas now there are approximately 40,500 members serving in the Coast Guard to ensure our nation's maritime safety. And whereas the United States Coast Guard has proudly served in all of our nation's conflicts, and whereas the local United States Coast Guard station at Oak Island was conceived in 1888 when the War Department recognized the navigational dangers caused by frying pan shoals. And whereas the station at Fort Caswell is home for 4 47-foot motor lifeboats that can self-right themselves if they flip over due to waves or surf, and is also a home base to the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary Flotilla. Now, therefore, I, Joseph P. Hayden, Mayor of the City of Southport, do hereby proclaim August 4th, 2023 as United States Coast Guard Birthday in North Carolina, and encourage others to recognize the history and importance of the Coast Guard here in Southport and across the nation. Proclaimed this 10th day of August, 2023. So we honor our Coast Guard. They're right across the river from us, and they're there. They do many things that we don't know what they're doing, and when we need them, they're there. So we want to congratulate the men and women who serve us over there across the river. So thank y'all. Next item on our agenda is item H1, public hearing, text amendment, signage, and illumination. So I'll call on Planner Mo Meehan, and I'll also entertain a motion to go into public hearing. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem and a second by Alderman Carroll. All in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Ms. Meehan.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Alderman. This evening I am presenting a text amendment. It was a applicant-initiated text amendment request. It's to the sign ordinance, section 3.19, and specifically section 3.19H, the illumination section. So the applicant is requesting a text amendment to receive final approval for a backlit sign and to be open and transparent. They did receive a permit that after they received the permit, we went back and realized that the ordinance had been interpreted not necessarily correctly. So we wanted to write this for them as well and see how we can do this. So the existing language says that illuminated signs shall be limited to those lighted internally with glass or plastic faces bearing the advertisements and diffusing the direct rays of the light source to prevent any direct line of sight with said light source. So that's the existing. So the what was permitted is considered a halo light, and it's described as text and shapes cut into overlaid surfaces that shine light from the reverse of the overlay. So it does not have the internal lit component that is the only thing that is allowed and limited in our existing ordinance. So these are some examples of the halo and backlit and illuminations. So they have moved forward and they asked us to add a section to our existing language, and the draft language specifically just says backlit and halo lighting that otherwise meet the provisions of section 3.19 of this ordinance are allowed. This was considered at the planning board, and they recommend approval, and they found the proposal was consistent with the land use plan. Specifically, it's preserving the character and atmosphere of the city while promoting retail growth. So that is the brief presentation. I'll answer any questions you have if you have any.
Okay. Any questions?
I do. Okay. What's the difference between a halo light, which I see what the illustration for the Haven is, and a backlit light like the one at the elementary school, the one in front of the firehouse, fire department, and the one that is sometimes lit in front of the police department?
I am not familiar with those being illuminated, so I'm afraid I can't answer that question directly. Are those internally lit? Does
Yeah.
anyone know those?
They're very, very bright and internally lit.
The fire department, you talking about the big monument sign?
Uh-huh.
That's a different style sign. We don't even allow that style of sign.
And I
according
realize
to our
those
ordinance
are,
now.
those are government, and
Yeah,
government
but
doesn't.
that type is not allowed.
But some of the examples that you've shown, the one to the left on the bottom, that's what I'm thinking of. And those things knock your eye out. If anybody's been down 9th Avenue, 9th Street, and seen the elementary school sign, that is shockingly bright. A private pilot I know who has sometimes flown over Southport at night said he often wonders why we keep just referring to Southport as a town. And I said, well, we are technically a city. And he said, well, you know, I can't tell the difference from the air between Southport and Leland. I mean, you are so lit up when you're up above looking down. And I think backlit signs especially are going to contribute to that. And we've gone to great lengths to try to limit the kind of light illumination in this town. I don't see the necessity for this, but I'm supposed to just be asking questions at this point, I believe.
Don't we have some restrictions within the rest of the sign ordinance that limits the brightness and that type of thing?
Yes, and I was going to mention that. We do have the color temperature for lighting that cannot exceed 3,000 degrees Kelvin. So I don't believe that picture actually would meet the requirements of our standards of our ordinance at this time.
Alderman Alt, you had a question?
I do. Mo, can you make me smarter on this? So if I drive up Howe Street now, at least a dozen signs are in violation. At least that. Because they're all backlit and they've been there forever and we leave them there. So does this code section now make them all legal, or does it not make them legal? I'm trying to figure out, if you look at all the different signs that go all the way up the street, whether it's the ABC store or whatever it is, those signs, the light goes from this side out that way, right? So is that backlit? I'm not sure what we mean by this.
That's internally lit, and those are legal and allowed by our ordinance now.
They are now?
Yes.
Okay. So are all backlit signs legal as long as they stay under the 3,000 Kelvin? Is that what you used, the number?
Yes, 3,000 degrees Kelvin, yes.
Okay. I'll follow up with you offline about the other signs that may or may not be fitting the rules then. Thanks.
Alderman Alt, part of the issue is that if they're older signs before we adopted the newer sign ordinance, then they're grandfathered in. So that's why there's a lot of conversation about, I think.
Well, then I need to follow up with you on that, and we need to put that out to people. So when people come up to me and say, I thought you said you can't do that. And if there's I bet you it's close to 18. My wife and I took a ride up the street one time, and there's 18 signs on Howe Street that appear to be in violation. If they're not, that's great to know.
Well, because of the grandfather status. But I will tell you this, just parenthetically, the planning board is doing a review of our sign ordinance, and they're working on that now for updates.
Surely the public would like to say something on this. It is the public hearing.
Yes, that would be the next step if our public would like to speak. Anyone would like to speak on this topic? Thank you, Bob. Saving the day.
I'm clearly not informed on this subject, but I think that Haven site looks very nice. I looked up 3,000 kelvins on Google. That's 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. There must be a typo. Nothing can be 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit and exist, I would think. Am I missing something?
Can't hear you.
3,000 degrees Kelvin is a light color. It's not a temperature.
Okay.
And it is a warm white rather than a cool white. If you look at that picture in the left corner of what she's got there, that's probably a 5,000 degree Kelvin light that's lighting it. That's why it's a blue white as opposed to a red white.
I'll go sit down now, thanks.
Good question.
Anyone else that would like to speak on the subject? Any further comments or questions by the board? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to go out of the public hearing. Okay, Alderman Carroll and a second by Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor? Okay, great, thank you. So this will be on our agenda for a vote at our next meeting. Item H2, public hearing, a map amendment, and this is a rezoning of a piece of property at the end of West Brown Street from multifamily to R10. I'll entertain a motion to go into public hearing. By a motion by Alderman Carroll. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Allen. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, motion carried. We're in the public hearing.
Oh, good evening again. This is a zoning map amendment that is also an applicant-initiated request. The request is, as you mentioned, it's at 605 West Brown Street, which is at the terminus of Brown Street, adjacent to the village at Southport. It is existing zoning is multifamily, and its future land use map classification is high-density residential. High-density residential future land use on the future land use map does allow a variety of single-family and multifamily uses. So this request to amend to R10 is consistent with that future land use zone. It's approximately a 2,900 square foot lot. And I'm going to go forward with this. So they, as you can see, it's a very small lot that they're asking for the request to amend to the R10. This is a non-conforming lot of record. So section 3.9B1 in your setback exceptions and encroachments allows rear and side yard setback reductions, which are proportionate to the lot size. So if this were to be changed to the R10, they would be able to utilize these reductions. It falls within the high suitability land classification on the land suitability analysis of your land use plan. And just to note that the rezonings must consider all permitted uses, not just single-family residential that they're considering. But if you looked at the chart, a lot of the uses are very, very similar for both, because they are both residential zoning districts. It appears to be consistent with the land use plan, and it is reasonable for the rezoning due to its size and location in the neighborhood. So the planning board recommended approval that the proposal was consistent with the land use plan and reasonable due to the size, physical location, and other attributes of the property. And I will take any questions that you may have.
What are the setbacks? May I apologize. What are the setbacks become on that property?
So for R10 itself, it would be 25-foot front yard, a 20-foot rear yard, and then 8 for each side yard. The reduced setbacks would have them with a 4-foot side yard, and then the rear yard was at 8 feet. And then you still had to have the 25-foot front yard.
Does the guideline of the neighboring property's front yard, would that apply to this property?
It does not, because there are no other neighboring properties developed on that street or on that block.
Do you know what buildable footprint that leaves?
I did not do the calculation.
Okay. I was just curious. It's okay. It is.
It's at the very end of Brown Street on the left, right before you get to the Villages condominiums. It's a very small lot on the left as you go down there. Anyone from the public that would like to speak in the public hearing? Anyone? Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to go out of the public hearing. Mayor Pro Tem, is there a second? Second by Alderman Carroll. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, we're out of the public hearing, and there will be a vote at the September 14th meeting on this as well. Item I, presentation and update by Up Your Arts. Mr. Bob Gentili will give the presentation. Thank you, sir. And welcome, Bonnie Ray. Thank you.
Button. There we go. All right. I got some happy news for all of you here. Good evening, Mayor Hayden and members of the Board of Aldermen. My name is Bob Gentili, and you probably noticed that there was a name crossed out on the agenda, John Kiefer. Unfortunately, he's homesick, so I got the call to come in and do this, but I've been working with John and Bonnie on this as a board member. I'm the chairperson of Up Your Arts Board of Directors. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'd like to update you on the latest stage of our work to create an arts center in downtown Southport from the old courthouse building and former City Hall on Moore Street. First, I'd like to recognize the members of our Board of Directors who are in attendance here today. We have Bonnie Bray right here, and back there, Deborah McLennan. Can you raise your hand, Deb? And over there, we have Tina Powers. As you're aware, Up Your Arts and the City of Southport have a memorandum of understanding that guides our work on this project. We have provided you with a record of our progress on a monthly basis since the agreement was signed in June 2022, and will continue to do so. These updates and catalogs are cataloged on our website for the public to read as well. One of our main responsibilities under the MOU was to fund professional architectural services and reconstruction of the building. What you see, I think, up here in a minute, no, I guess it's not going to be up there, is the initial package, which I know most of you have seen on our website, and I know that it's been presented here before. It was prepared by Lyle Architect and Design, including floor plans, conceptual drawings, and renderings. It's also available to see on our website. The plans were presented to you last September and discussed in a series of public meetings we held January and February of this year. Since then, Up Your Arts has been working to complete another important milestone, the MOU, which requires us to form a nonprofit board of directors to oversee and direct funding for the project. I'm here tonight to report on our progress in this area, which is well underway and really going very well. After the public meetings, Up Your Arts began compiling a list of people in the community who had expressed an interest in serving on the new board of directors, or had been referred to us as potential candidates. In mid-July, almost 200 people then received an invitation to consider taking the next step to explore the implications of their participation. 44 people responded positively, and we began accepting applications. 19 people ultimately determined that they were not in the position to serve in the near future and declined to go further in the process. But the remaining 25 are still lining up to interview. Meanwhile, we advertised the information of this new board in the state port pilot and on our Facebook page, trying to be very transparent and get it out there, which is almost 6,000, our Facebook page has almost 6,000 followers, while we continue identifying possible candidates. And I'm happy to say the interviews that began last week have revealed an amazing array of community members who are capable of taking this new board forward. We have representation from accomplished fundraisers and financial executives, construction experts, senior marketing and operations managers, contract negotiators, probate, lending, and trust authorities, strategic planners, and revenue producers. That's pretty amazing to me that they came out of nowhere and came to us. The majority have served on multiple nonprofit boards, and one has established and maintained a performing arts center. That's pretty cool. They are more than happy and very willing to apply their expertise and love of the arts to bring this new center to fruition. We are overwhelmed by their collective outpouring. As of today, Up Your Arts has scheduled 12 interviews from a pool of 15 applications received, and at least 10 others pending. With the help of organization design specialists and a former trustee of several arts centers who has stepped forward as unpaid consultants to guide the organization's progress, we have every expectation of having the Arts Center Board of Directors up and running by this fall. I thank you. That's all I got to say, and if you have any questions, I'm going to be here. Bonnie's going to step up and help me with some questions, and thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I have a question. When the city finally starts to really negotiate a longer term other than an MOU, we'll be negotiating with this new board, correct, and not the Up the Arts board?
That's correct.
Okay, so if we have questions about the design of the building or whether it fits in the historical perspective and all of that stuff, we should hold those questions until the new board is up and running, because they're the ones who will be making those decisions?
Yes, they will be making those decisions ultimately, and it will be based on the preliminary information and work that we have all done. And it'll be also, the Up Your Arts board will have representation on that board.
I also assume that the Historic Preservation Commission will have a lot of say about changes to that building.
That definitely would be the case. It's going to be an open discussion for many months to come, if not years.
Well, it's an unusual building, because as we've heard from this floor, it's our building. We can do what we want with it. Well, not quite. I'm sure legally that is the case, but I'm not sure the historical, and I could be wrong. I'm willing to be wrong on this one. Hopefully, I'm wrong. That the historical commission has any control over what happens with that building, as opposed, because it's a city building. So if it doesn't, I'm not sure how we work the one side of the argument that the building needs to stay exteriorly, is that a right word? Real word? The same as it is now, or can you put flying buttresses on it if you wanted to?
The Historic Preservation Commission guidelines and standards are currently being drafted, and so that until that happens, the commission has no enforcement role.
Right.
But because this discussion is now taking place, there are lots and lots of questions that can be answered when it's out in the open. As you know, this whole, other than what you've seen, that what we've presented, what Up Your Arts has presented to the Board of Aldermen and the mayor, and had on our website and the public meetings, the building looks exactly the same to the naked eye as it did 4 years ago, because all of this is what we're talking about, possibilities here. And until construction starts, or until the construction documents go out for bid, it's open to all kinds of revisions and changes to the general public.
Well, my question is, it's open to this board's decision, what that building's going to look like.
Well, I think it would be incumbent on us to honor the Historic Preservation Commission. That building, I believe, is in the National Historic Registry, so.
Oh, I'm in your camp. I'm in your camp on that.
So I don't, regardless of what might be the legal, I think our process would be that we would certainly engage with them. And I would expect that this board would have some kind of representation on your board as well to engage. And that's something that you didn't say, but I know that's what you mean.
Absolutely, yes. There's no question about that. There'll be representation. I mean, we all have to remember, this is the city of Southport's asset. We're raising the funds and developing the program for the city of Southport. It's your asset. And for a number of reasons, that's obviously critical and important. And one of the biggest reasons it's going to help get this done is because a municipality can get money that a non-for-profit cannot get from federal government, from block grants down to the state, to the county. I mean, that's how it's all done when these type of projects are being worked on. So it's going to be critical, and it is your asset, and it increase your bond rating, and there's a whole list of other things that will come from that. We very much realize that, and it's a work of love, and it really is, and to a building here that we know will make a difference in this city.
I just want to thank y'all for your continued volunteerism.
Thank you.
To our community.
Any further questions?
And thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank y'all. This is a great project. It's one of the crown jewels of Southport, the old courthouse, and we look forward to its rebirth. It takes time, it takes money, and with time and money, you will succeed. We all succeed together. So thank you. Next item on our agenda is item J1, the W.K. Dixon Sewer Update Presentation and Contract Agreement. This sewer update, it's been a long time coming. We started with this in November 2019 when I ran for mayor, and at that time, the platform that I ran on was that Southport should not build its own wastewater treatment plant, that we should regionalize with the county, and we're moving forward with that. Tonight we will be discussing the I&I study. The first time I heard that term was November 2019. I didn't know what they were saying exactly. I know what it is in medicine, but I didn't know what it was in sewers, inflow and infiltration. And so what happens when there's an inefficient system, there are holes in the system, you get rainwater in there, and your costs go up and your efficiency goes down. So that's one of the things we'll be looking at. We have a grant for that, and so I'm looking forward to the discussion with this. This, like I say, started with Bruce Oakley, then went through Gordon Hargrove, and now with Bonnie. So, Mr. Hubbard, looking forward to your presentation, and also Tom Z from the engineering point of view and the grant. Thank you.
And I apologize, there's supposed to be a PowerPoint and it's not loaded. So I will make that available on the website tomorrow.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Aldermen, members of the public. I'm fortunate to have a printed copy to go by. And there's been a lot of good discussion tonight. Hopefully I can update the board and the public on several projects that the city has going on at one time. I wanted to talk through the whole program, to touch on these projects, to give you an update, talk about some of the details and some of the discoveries, talk about the schedule and progress. So, one of the projects is a downtown sewer replacement project. It's called the USDA Sewer Replacement. That one is in design by Wooten and Company. So that one's ongoing by a separate company, and that's for a certain area of the downtown. There's a lift station rehabilitation project which has been funded. There is the inflow and infiltration study, which is an asset and inventory funded project. There's a find and fix it project, which is some funding available to solve some deficiencies that are discovered by the study. And as the mayor mentioned, there's also the wastewater treatment plant that Brunswick County is administering that project. So to dive into these a little bit more, the lift station rehabilitation, we were involved with that, and we did drawdown testing of the larger pump stations. We found that the pumps that had been replaced are pumping adequately to the design conditions. We evaluated those sites. We looked at the conditions of the pump stations. We developed a list of deficiencies to prioritize needs. We also used that information in hydraulic modeling. We wanted to check not only the condition of the pump stations, but the pipes that go from the pump station up and send the wastewater out of the city. So we evaluated those, and the pressures match the actual conditions, our calibration. So that's actually good news. It means that those pipes are in good condition, or at least serviceable condition. So as we went through this, we prioritized those needs. We wanted to optimize the funds available and get the most bang for the buck. We're currently in conceptual layout of those pump station replacements. We have design and permitting still to do, but the intent is to replace those pump stations with new wet wells and valves and pumps that are consistent with Brunswick County standards and will serve the city for a long time into the future. The pump stations identified are on 9th Street, Moore, and Park. And just again, it's a new wet well, it's electrical components, it's panels, it's to replace those outdated structures. Throughout that process, we identified that there's flow that's coming from all over the city, and it gets routed through the central pump station and then pumped up to Sandy Lane. Central pump station has a whole lot of load from all that repumping from pump stations, and there's an opportunity to upgrade the Park Avenue pump station with a force main to go outside of the city. So we've identified a solution for redundancy and resiliency, and identified that as a project. To dive into the inflow and infiltration study a little bit deeper, that involves an assessment. Smoke testing is a method to pressurize and push air with an artificial smoke or a visual indicator of air to put air into the line, and it'll identify leaks and problems with the sewer system where this inflow might be occurring, and it's a very effective way to do that. So there's 60,000 feet that's planned to be tested, and that covers a considerable amount of area beyond the USDA replacement area. We've got nighttime flow isolation testing to be done to have a good look and evaluate how much groundwater is getting in the pipe. That's infiltration. That'll be done at night, so there's no domestic wastewater anticipated. And that's setting up some monitoring equipment, and it records that. There's manhole inspections to check the approximately 200 brick manholes, all part of that sewer system, but the manholes are very important to look at as well for leaks and condition. There's closed caption television, and that's to look at 25,000 feet to get a good visual of inside the pipe and understand the conditions of the pipe. We'll take all that information, we'll prioritize repairs and rehabilitation, and generate a report. The next part of this is just how so there's a lot of field work to be done there, and how we assign the areas to be investigated. And we've looked at several of the creeks and the surrounding houses, and divided the city up into these study areas that are contributing sewer flow through this gravity system along Cottage Creek. So we'll take a look at specific areas and work around these creeks just to make sure that we know what the conditions of the pipe are, the manholes, we'll identify any deficiencies and really prioritize those repairs. And that's along Cottage, Bonnets Creek, and then potentially around Prices Creek. So we've numbered and we've identified those areas, and that's where we can mobilize and utilize those funds to do that study. So that's to identify the problems. The next project is the Find and Fix It project. That has some ARPA funding involved with some that the city's been approved for and has been very proactive in going out and getting those funds. There's an engineering report that's required with that. We feel that it's going to be important to combine the effort from the I&I study and use that in this project as well to make sure that there's not redundancy of some of that testing and evaluation, but also to use the funds right away to fix problems. That'll involve preparation of construction documents, bidding, and construction. And so then this leads me to schedules. There's multiple projects going on at similar schedule. And there is a deadline with the ARPA funds, but what we want to do is really start implementing improvements just as soon as practical to avoid cost in the I&I and for the benefit of the city. So the lift station rehabilitation, I mentioned that's ongoing with design. We've had some field work already on that, and the design will be completed in March of 2024. Goes through permitting, bid and award in 2024, and then construction to start, well, towards the end of 2024. Once we get further along in the project and in the design, we'll be able to evaluate the appropriate construction period with the equipment that's needed, and we'll update that, but we want to get that completed well in advance of the funding deadline. With the I&I study, we're ready to get started with that as soon as next month. We have a sub-consultant that does the field work, and they're ready to get going on that. And we want to definitely identify problems so that then we can come up with solutions. And then the Find and Fix project is really the funding to do that. We've got a schedule presented, but we're going to take another look at that. We want to expedite to get contracts in hand sooner, to be able to meet the funding requirements. So what we'll be doing is taking another look at that to try to get that more in parallel with the I&I study and really try to implement that sooner. So what that means is it's going to require us to prepare some construction documents on some of the types of fixes that we don't necessarily know exactly where they're going to be, but which types. And so it'll be in line with some similar projects that we do in several other communities with appropriate construction documents for that. So we plan to advance that so that we are under contract by the end of 2024 and just trying to expedite those improvements with the funds available. So that is the presentation that I had prepared. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I'm assuming you're using the I&I to do the prioritization of actually what you're going to fix?
That is the plan, yes. We want to, and so the, yes, we want to prioritize, and the I&I study is usually very beneficial with identifying not only, well, the severity and consequence of some of the issues so that we can allocate resources to the right projects.
So if I heard you correctly, the outgoing from the lift stations, the pressure going out from the lift station shows that those pipes are okay?
It indicates that there was no excessive pressures or deterioration in the pumping capabilities. And so that indicates that it's serviceable for the system that you have now.
So if Cottage Creek, as an example, is being polluted by the system, it would be the flow coming from the houses and businesses to the pump station. It would be on that side of the
Yes,
line?
Sir.
That's
yes, sir. Yeah, we want to really focus on, yes. So, for your question, outgoing flow, incoming flow, is it a pressurized situation or is it the gravity? So we would have been able to identify if there was an issue with the pipes with that outgoing pressurized situation. So now we want to focus on the gravity sewer that are along those creeks. Yes, sir.
All right. And I want to thank the two Toms and the manager for the fact that they're going to use DNA to see. We know that all the creeks at different times are polluted, but Cottage Creek in particular. They're going to use DNA to see if the pollution is tied strictly to humans or is it tied to animals as well. So is it something that am I saying that right, Tom? Okay. So does it something that's naturally occurring? Regardless, we know it's polluted, but what's causing that? And that test that they're doing right now will help us understand that better. So I want to thank the staff for working on that.
And just point out there are also other sources of contamination in Cottage Creek besides the city of Southport, like boats, marinas, septic tanks, etc.
Yes, it's multifactorial. It's just not the city. And from what you described, the pipes are in pretty good shape. So, from what you've seen so far, you don't think at the present time that it's pumping all this contamination into Cottage Creek. Is that correct?
We don't have evidence from the evaluation that we have done. Now we want to take a good look at the gravity sewer and go ahead and check through that.
So you were talking about the outflow from the pumps looks okay, and now you're looking at the inflow from the pumps to see if that's okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a request. The city manager has some comments on this about what we'll need to do if we approve this, and certainly we need to, about letting the public know what's happening.
Yes, as a part of this agenda item, we're asking you to modify the contract for W.K. Dixon. We did receive that ARPA grant of $400,000, and this would be to allow them to do this infiltration and inflow study. The two Toms and Carter and I have had a lot of discussions because I've done these I&I studies in other communities. It is key, and we've talked about this, to notify the public and those people that are going to be affected by this or those in the neighboring areas. You all of a sudden start seeing smoke coming out. We don't want people to panic. So we will make sure that we do press releases, media. We're going to do door knockers. So those houses that are going to be affected, we're going to go out there and put a flyer right on their door saying that this is going to occur, this is when it's going to occur, this is what you're going to find out is going to happen, so that people are not going, calling the fire department constantly. But it's such an important project that we do. And once you do these I&I studies, the amount of information you will get off of that, of what our sanitary sewers are doing, it's amazing. But we know how key it is for PR and letting the public know what's going to happen and the effects and all that. So certainly, I would request that you do modify the contract for Dixon so that we can move ahead with this.
And this doesn't cost us anything because it's covered by the grant?
Yeah, it should. That's what we estimate.
Okay, Tom, if you'd like to.
I'm here to answer questions on the proposed contract for WK Dixon to start the I&I study. And if the board approves it tonight, as Carter said earlier, they can get started as early as September and get on this. The quicker we get it done, the quicker we can move on to the next part, which is the find and fix it, and we can spend our money more efficiently.
Do we need a motion?
Any questions? Yeah, we will need a motion to,
Yeah,
any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract amendment to WK Dixon for sanitary sewer infiltration and inflow study and authorize the mayor to execute the contract.
Is there a second? Second by Alderman Davis. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Excellent work. Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. Thank you, Tom Z. Appreciate it.
And while Tom Z's here, Mr. Mayor, if I can just say, we thank him very much for getting us a $250,000 Golden Leaf grant. I told him he earned his salary.
For a couple of years.
Yeah. But job well done. This is for stormwater management, and we desperately need it in the city, so thank you, Thomas. You did a great job.
Yes, thank you. Item J2 is discussion and board vote, conditional zoning text amendment. And again, it's not going to be passed. We just need to know what to do with it. The board needs to decide, what you want to do in that regard. If you want to send it back to the planning board, do you want to tie it to the comprehensive master plan? But to just table it or taking it off, we need to have a plan at least going forward and then decide, one way or the other. So I'll open it up to discussion, motion, whatever the board would like to do.
I would like to...
Travis, you want to get back up here again?
No.
No, we do not need,
Yeah.
I did not call,
No,
I purposely did not call on him.
I know. But I'd like to just make a few comments. I want to be real clear that in no way, because I have an analysis of something, that I'm discounting any citizens' questions and concerns. We hear it all. I went through all the questions, and questions like, I've heard comments recognizing that developers are only concerned about profit, and no one is saying this text amendment will help the city limit or control developers. Well, by state statute, allows administrative by right traditional zoning approvals essentially without any influence from citizen input. And so these state statutes allow developers to move forward as long as they can check the boxes and are not required to consider citizen or board concerns. We've seen that happen recently with Oakton, and I'm not going to rain on them because they did do something that they didn't have to with making it one way on Stewart coming in. So we appreciate that, but they were not required to do anything else other than what was checking off the boxes because it was a by right. Other questions, and just a few of other questions, we were asked that the board not approve the proposed conditional zoning text amendment until after the comprehensive plan has been updated. Well, we're obligated to consider things based on the comprehensive plan we have. We don't so all text amendments are in context of the comprehensive plan. And so waiting to make decisions on a new plan is sort of separate from that. And then there were questions about it being spot zoning or contract zoning, and our attorney told us that it indeed was not illegal spot zoning. So anyway, I wanted to, hang on, I wasn't going to talk. Okay, so this is what I wanted to talk about, is in our comprehensive plan, the plan for the future on page 128 states that the City of Southport must continuously work at accomplishing plan implementation and maintaining an effective planning program. Changes to Southport's management of growth should occur. In contemporary planning, the most discussed concept is smart development. In reality, this concept is not a new idea. It is simply the blending of many existing ideas. Smart development provides for the preservation of land and natural resources. These benefits result from compact building forms, infill development, and moderation in street and parking standards. Compact building patterns preserve land for city and neighborhood parks, as well as local woods and wetlands. Furthermore, compact development shortens trips, lessens the dependence on automobile, and therefore reduces the energy consumption and air pollution. Finally, a compact development pattern supports more cost-effective and efficient infrastructure. Our comprehensive plan goes on to say, inflexible standards, regulations, and processes will discourage innovative approaches to development and design. Again, the implementation of smart development practices is not new. Our Old Town historic area, with our smaller lots, smaller setbacks, front porches, and sidewalks that encourage neighborly interactions that build community is an organic example of many of the goals of smart growth planning. Without updating the conditional zoning process, which is already in our UDO for non-residential, without updating the conditional zoning process, our current zoning does not allow a residential builder the possibility to propose a project that is more consistent with our character, that could recreate modern streetscapes similar to North Atlantic or Caswell Avenues, with the diversity of housing, big and small. On the UDO page of the city website, it states, the City of Southport's Unified Development Ordinance was adopted, the update was adopted in 2020, which everybody's familiar with. And it says, among the other changes, the update includes, and I'm quoting it, this is on our website, inclusion of a conditional zoning procedure to aid in consensus-built and public-supported development outcomes. Without conditional zoning text amendment, we do not have a potentially collaborative, upfront community input residential zoning process. That's why, for me personally, you know, I think it's a mistake to kick the can down the road linking the proposed conditional zoning text amendment update to the future comprehensive plan project that could take as much as 2 years to complete. And you know, the planning board had, I think, maybe 9 meeting. I don't, and I almost think 3 public meetings, and then we had a work. So this isn't being rushed through. Some of the questions were, why are we rushing it through? That ain't a rush. For one text amendment conversation, that's not rushing. And so, and I don't mean that disrespectful in any way, but what I would like to say is that we have before us a text amendment that is recommended by our professional staff. We have a text amendment that is recommended by the planning board, and I do support staff's recommendation, but I have some minor questions myself about this that out of respect for the work of the planning board, I personally would make a motion to send the proposed text amendment back to the planning board for review and consideration of the following changes regarding the initial process steps. Consistent with the School of Government summary of conditional zoning procedure with a slight addition. Instead of optional, make a pre-application conference with staff the mandatory first step. This will allow staff to answer the applicant's questions prior to submitting the application and make suggestions to help facilitate the public input meeting. Then the second step, prior to the submittal of the application, would be the public input meeting. Having the public input meeting before the master development plan is officially submitted could make the process, I believe, more collaborative up front, including the results, because then the applicant must include the results from the public input meeting in the application as part of the application. And then they meet with staff. They're going to have to explain to staff before it even comes to the planning board. They're going to have to explain to staff how they took that public input into account for what they're submitting. To me, that is the value of the conditional zoning process. This would allow the applicant the opportunity to respond and incorporate the community input in the required master development plan before it's submitted. This would give our planning staff from the beginning the ability to review the public input along with the submittal to understand how, like I said, it was taken into consideration. And then for staff to do the technical review as part of the preparation for the public hearing and planning board review. And then it goes to the planning board after those kinds of conversations. So that's that. I also want to say this, and I've served on this board for 7.5 years, and I know most of everybody that speaks, and I know firsthand that the conversations about trust and distrust and all of this, you cannot create zoning ordinance to affect the behavior of a board. The board has the power in the future to change the zoning ordinance. So I know I've had people say in comments, well, I'm not worried about this board because they know us and they know who we are. But I will tell you, any future board has the authority to change ordinance. And so I just want to say that, and I'm probably overstaying my welcome.
Alderman Alt.
I just want to follow up on a couple of things that you said and make sure that I was following along. It's always been my understanding that there's a mandatory pre-submittal meeting between the citizens and the developer. That's by state statute.
Yeah, so the reason I brought this up to send it back to the planning board is the planning board, and they went back and forth with it, but the way that this is submitted at the moment, the application is submitted and then the public input meeting occurs. That's how this.
That's how they wrote it?
That's how it's written right now. It could do, and communities do it either way.
Okay.
I prefer it being up front because this is the thing. Because there is nothing, once this application comes in, there is nothing that says we have to approve it, regardless of what they want. Some of the things, it's important to know that, when Mr. Gandy talked about global warming and climate change and all that, and Lois actually did it in the last meeting because I have those notes and those questions, is in this conditional zoning ordinance update, for residential, they increased. So if you're built 250 right now in a PUD, you would only have to have 20% open space by PUD. In this conditional zoning, the planning board baked in that if you do 250 homes, you have to do a 5% increase in that 20%, so it becomes, for 250 home development, you have to do 25% open space. For 250 more homes, for 500, you would have to do 30%, and then if you were doing a subdivision that was 750 homes, you would have to do 35% open space. I mean, there's, of the 11, the question about communities and what communities are doing it in our region. There are 11 small towns in our region that have conditional zoning. So, and none of them have that kind of thing baked in.
Some of them, like Oak Island, though, not on the island. You can do it over in their ETJ or whatever you want to call it, the next land on the mainland. There's no conditional zoning on the island itself.
Okay, there's no residential conditional zoning on the island, and the reason for that is the island, it's only on Sunset and Oak Island that they did that, and the reason they did that is because the islands are fully platted lots, and they do not want somebody coming in and doing a recombination. This ordinance that the planning board has sent us has a minimum 5-acre project, so that effectively cancels out that concern in our community.
I've got a couple of questions for you. First of all, what is the open space requirement for a PUD, planned unit development?
20%.
And what is it for just a subdivision?
Well, if I off the top of my head, I can tell you the difference. I can do it in a previous project. The difference was, if it was a PUD, it was going to have around 70 acres of open space, and if it was done in R20, it would have to have 12.
What is the space you're talking about overall?
I'm sorry?
You're talking about 70 acres.
Well, that was a big project. That was like a big, I don't know, I want to say it's 0.02 per unit. Maybe this is a...
Correct.
So if you had... I can
you know you're still under contract, young man. Let's not be that brief.
Okay. What I'm trying to get to is, why does conditional zoning, why do you see that as better than the provisions and the ways that a PUD can be developed?
Because in conditional zoning, right now, so I'm glad you asked that question. Hang on. Wait a minute, let me find, okay. Because one of the questions was, why are we not eliminating PUD? That's one of the questions and questions I was listening to. And why do we need to maintain PUD zoning in the UDO if we're considering updating conditional zoning process to include residential? First, we need to retain the PUD language. Currently in Southport, there are existing areas that are zoned PUD without having a defined site plan. For example, behind Southport Crossing, where the new Lowe's Food is, there's PUD zoned area without a defined site plan because it wasn't required at the time that zoning was approved. So we need to maintain PUD zoning to manage the future development within those older projects so that their future development has supporting ordinance. Now, back to your question. Why do we need to update our conditional zoning ordinance to include residential if we have PUD zoning? I had someone say that I didn't really think we needed another development tool. Nothing's broken. Well, the conditional zoning process is just another tool. Our current planned unit development language has many requirements consistent with traditional zoning. The current PUD dimensional standards effectively limit the ability of new projects to cluster development that supports the smart growth principles that are in our city's comprehensive plan, which states under the plan for the future, inflexible standards, regulations, and processes discourage innovative approaches to development and design. The actual PUD density, it has PUD dimensional standards. Those actual standards make a reference that dwellings which do not utilize zero lot line provisions shall maintain a minimum side setback of less than well, the way the rest of those dimensional standards are written, you can't even have zero lot lines. So it reduces the amount of diversity of housing, and so that you have different types of housing. PUD, the way it's written, limits that.
Does conditional zoning reduce density?
Conditional zoning has no density conversation. What conditional zoning is meant to do is to allow a developer to come in with a project that is in a complete project and make a proposal about a complete project. The only thing, yes, would they be, it depends on the developer as to what the design is going to be, so I can't really answer that question. I would say that in more modern, well, I would say yes. I'm going to take that back, Lo, because I'm going to say yes, it would encourage density, meaning more compact, because let's say they're building 250 homes, we're requiring 25% open space. We're requiring more open space. So it would require denser. It doesn't mean necessarily more units than would have been allowed, but it would require them to be more compact, just because you would be utilizing less open space. I mean, you would be creating more open space.
But we have heard from someone who previously was a representative of a major developer in North Carolina, who made it very clear, just as the developer for Indigo 2 has made it clear. Developers do what they do to make money. They make money primarily by the number of units that they can build and sell. And so ideally, as you have put it, modern development, clustering units here and having lots of open space here. That's just one example, I guess, of how it could be done. Ultimately, they're not here to beautify Southport. They're here to make money, and they make money by building more units. More units, more housing, more housing, more density, more cars.
Well, this is what I would say to that. There are all kinds of developers. You can have, their business models are different. You can take a 100-acre tract of land and say that it is R20, and you can have a tract builder come in, or it's R10 or whatever it is, and have a tract builder come in and do it as a by right project and make their business model work for them, I guess. Or you can have, a different developer that does more compact projects with bigger green space. I don't.
The number of houses is only one part of the equation. The cost of those houses, the amount they sell for, is the other part of the equation. So if the developer can come in and by dint of using conditional zoning create a better product that he can charge more money for, then he's going to make more money per house. I mean, it's not, you're only considering one half of the equation.
Well, we started a conversation about 3 years ago with a developer, and at that time the only thing we had was PUD or by right. And somehow it turned into a discussion of a development agreement, which gives you the same kind of flexibility that you're talking about, does it not?
No.
No, sir. No, sir.
You cannot go against the UDO within that development agreement. So if it's not allowed within the UDO, you couldn't. So zero lot lines in PUD would not be allowed.
I'm not sure that anybody in this world, other than a couple of people in this room, would want zero lot lines. Who wants zero lot lines? I'm not even sure I understand.
I know a lot of people that live in houses with zero lot lines.
Well, they can go to Myrtle Beach, they can go wherever they want to. But this is Southport. We don't have that, and I don't understand why we would want even to consider such a behavior pattern.
We do have it. We do have zero lot lines in Southport. They have them on Bald Head Island. I'm not arguing in favor of CZ. I'm just saying that this obviously has a place in what we're trying to accomplish if PUD isn't allowing us to do what it is we want to do.
The thing, I'm going to tell you, Rich, or Alderman Alt, sorry. The thing that I would say about what you said about the development agreement that has always been a little hard for me, even though I've read all about it with school government and all that stuff, is the thing about conditional zoning is we have those discussions in daylight. The public input meeting, the citizens can say what they want and start that, and that begins that process. The planning board can say, well, what about this, coming with recommendations. For me, it brings it more in daylight. We still at the end have to have a development agreement because we have to record all the conditions that in order to do this, you did this, you did the extra open space, you did the da-da-da-da-da. So, that's for me.
I'm trying to figure out how we sell this, that if, I don't want to get tied down. Well, it might have been not 50. Some number of people came into this room over the past, how many months have we been doing this? I don't know, 6, 8 months. And they all spoke, not all, 95% of them spoke against this thing. We did that in the daylight. So if that citizen input isn't influencing us, why would any other citizen input influence us?
Well, I've had other people contact me about being in favor of it. So, I just want to look at what the facts are, and I think clearly I haven't discounted that input.
I've had several citizens contact me and say that they are in favor of CZ. I actually had one citizen who told me that, and told me that he was afraid, literally afraid, to express that opinion publicly because he feared retribution from what I think I'll have to admit is a very small number of extremely vociferous opponents to CZ. So this whole concept that a majority of the citizens are against CZ, there's absolutely zero evidence to support that.
I don't think we should raise the specter of fear in this discussion.
Well, the opponents already have. It's all fear. There is no other reason to oppose it except fear.
Are you saying that the opponents of conditional zoning are threatening people who are in favor of it?
I'm telling you that a citizen told me he was in favor of CZ and he was afraid to make his position known publicly because he feared what the small number of very vociferous people might have to say to him.
We can't protect the world from the one-off. We just can't. I mean, if one person stands up in some room and says, I don't want you guys to do anything, are we going to listen to them? I'm sorry. No. There's a lot of people in this world that are on the emotional edge, and I can't help them with that. That's not my job. It's somebody else's job. But I'm not going to be, I find it abhorrent that we're blaming these people in this room and all the other people that come in here, and we're just telling them that some number of you, we can't trust. I find that just abhorrent.
Who said that? Did I say?
You referred to it already, that people told us they don't trust.
Well, that doesn't have anything to do with trust. And the whole negative part of this is coming from people who are opposed to CZ because they are afraid of what might happen. So I don't understand, Lo, and you said we shouldn't operate from a place of fear. I agree. But if you vote against it, that's exactly what you're doing.
I was referring to your reference to a citizen who told you he was afraid of retribution from the opponents.
Right. What about it? We should discount his position because you don't think he's telling the truth, or Rich, you think he's being too emotional?
I think that's a real digression. Why don't we stay on the topic?
Well, yeah, the topic is CZ, and as we were making a lot of fairly wild accusations about who supports it and who doesn't, and I was simply pointing out that there are, in fact, people who support it, and they don't feel comfortable speaking out publicly. So it's a real mistake to just sit here and live in an echo chamber and say that, oh, no, everybody's opposed to it.
So without putting words in anyone's mouth, I'd like to just
Can I second the Mayor Pro Tem's motion?
That's what I was getting to do. I was going to summarize sort of what she said, including just for the citizens, that the pre-application process is to facilitate the public input meeting. And then even before the master plan is submitted, there's a public input meeting. So there's no plan submitted, but the plan the public sees and has a dialogue. Is that correct? And then it they must, let's see, put that, they must put the public's input into the application. So that they know, and so your motion explained that, but the motion was to send it to the planning board with these changes, and in particular, that there has to be public input all the way, including before it's even submitted, and then there's the public input meeting, and then there has to be that public input into that master plan in some fashion. But your motion is to, with those changes, send it back to the planning board for them to look at and put those changes in, and this gives the public more power.
Well,
I want to just say that I haven't heard anything that says that the developer, the applicant, would have to incorporate the public's desires and recommendations into their plan. They only would have to say, yeah, we heard them, and we don't like it.
Well, that's our job.
But they won't be
we
very
get to decide
successful.
whether to approve
Yeah.
it or not.
I'm sorry, John, I talked over you.
But that's our job, Alderman Davis. Our job is to decide what should be in the approved plan, whether it should be approved or whatever.
Well, the planning, it really is earlier than that. Staff, I believe the reason I wanted to realign those procedures was so that then staff could say, here is the public input, and here's your site plan. You incorporated, how did you respond to that? Because that's very important information, because if they're not, this process is a collaboration, and if the developer isn't being collaborative, then they don't need to be in conditional zoning process. I can't imagine the planning board would move forward without addressing the public input parts that relate to the master plan, required master plan.
I'm going to support this to get it off of our plate. There's still a lot to learn about CZ. I feel like we didn't really accomplish much tonight, but I'm gonna vote on this.
I thought the mayor said we're not going to vote on anything
No, we need
tonight.
a second. No, we're not going to vote to pass it or not. We need to what to do with it, whether or not it goes with the motion is to send it back to the planning board for them to look at it and make these changes. So is there a second? Okay, so there's a second by Alderman. Is that correct? Make sure your motion
that's
is
correct, but I want to be real clear. I'm not telling the planning board what they're sending back to us. I want this to their consideration. They have done a yeoman's job of working on this, as has staff. So I just want to make that really clear.
And so now, after all their work, and I do respect the amount of work that they put into this, the research that they have done, I respect their recommendation, and we're going to ask them to do more on this. If they had thought it was a great idea in the first place, wouldn't they have come up with it? Now we're giving it back to them and trying to say, oh, we really want this, before we know that we want it.
It is realigning the processes that are already there. It's just a realignment of the processes based on the School of Government documentation and their process. And so this board, from time to time, when we receive recommendations from the planning board, we send them back with other questions. If they come back and say, no, this makes more sense because da-da-da-da, then we'll have that conversation then.
That's called leadership.
When have we done that in the last 4 years?
We have. I'd have to think about, but we've sent things back before. And we certainly have that tool.
So the other idea, I guess the contrary idea is that we do what with this? Table it? What are your thoughts, Lo? What do you want to accomplish?
Well, surprisingly, I would like to simply take no action on this until after we have a comprehensive master plan proposal in front of us and see whether we want to incorporate conditional zoning into it. Again, yes, we have a comprehensive plan now, and it's so old that it is mandatory that we update it. So we're going to update it. Then let's see where we are and what we need. Sending this back to the planning board, and the planning board comes back with what you want them to have, then we're going to be back at the point of, are we going to vote for this or not? Too soon, too premature to be considering this now.
So, very clear. And so what I envision, it's probably going to take the planning board until 2024 at the earliest, because I'm not making a joke. Our planner is leaving. Our director of development services is leaving. And so we need to have a new director. You wouldn't have an operation without a surgeon, so we certainly cannot fix this without our Director of Development Services. So it will be in 2024 at the earliest before this comes back. So
Getting up close to when we're in the middle of the comprehensive plan.
That takes 18 months. So, yeah.
We'll be eating into it.
And you can vote to say fold it into it. You were saying wait till after it.
No,
so
before we approve the comprehensive master plan, we have an extensive review, public hearings, and at that point we consider whether we want to incorporate conditional zoning into it. And of course, the comprehensive master plan would take into consideration, would this be something good for this plan?
all right, well, we have a motion and a second to send it back to the planning board. And again, it would not be back until sometime in 2024. And then when they send it back, you certainly still have the option of incorporating it into the, I mean, you have options. That board will have options. Okay? Well, yes, it'll be a new board. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Potentially election season, and that's another thing. We don't want this to affect the election. It shouldn't, you know. Someone spoke very eloquently about that, one of our citizens. So if we listen to our citizens, that's one of the points that they made. Any further discussion? Okay. Show of hands. All in favor to send it back to the planning board? All opposed? 3-2, motion carried. All right, thank you. Thank you for that excellent discussion. Next item is the call for this should go rather quickly, call for a public hearing, to set the public hearing for a text amendment for short-term rental ordinance. It's something that we're already doing, and we just need to set the public hearing for this. We're no longer registering short-term rentals. Mr. Henley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. All this item is just asking you to set a public hearing on this text amendment to remove the references to the annual registration program. Approval of this text amendment, which both staff and the planning board are recommending, changes nothing from an enforcement standpoint. It just removes outdated language from the ordinance that we're no longer enforcing.
Any questions for Mr. Henley at this time? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to set the public hearing for September 14th, 2023. Alderman Carroll, is there a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion carried. Thank you. So that public hearing will be at the September meeting, and then the vote on that will be at the October meeting. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Henley. Is that the last time you'll present in front of us? Thank you. Thank you for your delightful service, and in particular, thank you for making conditional zoning so easy and pleasant. Thank you. Yeah. I thank you for the work that you have done on that, and the planning board has done on that, and then we'll get through it. We'll get through it. Our next item is the finance policy internal controls. I don't know if Mr. Gross is still here.
No, he's out of state.
That's right. So
he's enjoying vacation.
Madam City Manager.
Yes, internal controls is Finance 101, that every community should have an internal control policy. Without it, you might as well not have any other policies. And what this does is it safeguards the assets, it prevents fraud, it prevents waste, it prevents abuse. It is something that I'm surprised an auditor hasn't brought up yet, although this auditor's already the new one has already asked for it. And it covers areas such as electronic banking, petty cash, use of petty cash, accounting controls. You've got to be very careful of somebody who's counting the cash isn't also bringing everything to the bank, and that's where you run into problems. So this written internal control will now safeguard who controls what, when, and how, so that we can stop fraud, we can stop abuse that could go on with taxpayers' money. It's just something you should have had for a long time, and Paul worked our interim director worked hard to put this together, working with the GFOA. So I would highly recommend you pass this.
Any questions for the city manager? Okay.
Thank you very much. I make a motion to adopt the proposed policy.
Second it.
And a second by, it was a tie, second by Alderman Alt and Alderman Davis. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the ABC appointment. Professor Angela Wadsworth, she served for 3 years on this board, and she reapplied, and we're very happy that she did. We interviewed her, and questions are the same as they were for previous applicants, and there were no other applicants but Professor Wadsworth. So a letter from Mr. Davis, it was in your packet, requesting that she be reappointed. So I'll entertain first, any questions on this? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So, second.
Okay. Alderman Davis, and second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carried. Thank you so much. Item 6, stabilization of West Bay Street. Alderman Carroll, I believe, brought this forward, and also I sent an email to the city manager. Someone was walking their dog a few months ago and sent me an email saying it looks like the road and the sidewalk was in pretty bad shape, and it is. It's ironic no one that lives there said anything about it. I guess if you see it every day, you don't really notice it. So anyway, I'll call on Tom Stanley and Tom Z.
Yeah, let the experts come and explain this. How they're going to fix it and how much it'll cost.
Yes, usually use a little stone, a little riprap, and hopefully we can, you know, you did a good job on the east side, sir, that the stone fortress. See what we can do on the west side.
Well, normally my first comment when I speak to you guys is good evening, but I think we have surpassed that, so I would say good night. So anyway, good evening, good night. So as you guys know, and probably everyone in this room knows, for the past several months, there's been a erosion problem at the 200 block of West Bay Street. To make it short and sweet, the orange fence, although it's doing a wonderful job with the holes in it to keep them back the tides, there needs to be more of a permanent fix. It's taken us a while to find the appropriate size stone that CAMA would allow, but we took a field trip to a quarry, we chose a stone, and the reason why we actually had to go was because right now most stone is being produced for road construction. So they're not really readily making big rocks anymore at this point. I don't mean like ever, but so anyway, you guys have in front of you the agenda item with a little detailed kind of drawing of how it needs to be. And it's going to be taken off from the existing rock revetment about 175 feet towards the frying pan, with very large riprap, much larger than what's out in front of the Garrison building now. The smallest size is probably going to be about 750 pounds. That's what size screen. So it's not going to be small stuff. Probably been cheaper to use Volkswagens. But, you know, and it'll require some equipment rentals, shutting down of the block of West Bay Street between South Lord and South Caswell, and most likely because of the size of the equipment and material, you will see in the estimate some sidewalk and asphalt replacement to a tone of, on the higher end of the spectrum, just over $181,000. And what I'd like to see happen tonight, what Southport would like to see happen tonight, is the approval for us to move forward to this project. Once, if you guys approve, then Heather and I will go knock door to door. She'll start working with Terry McPherson to get permitting, and then we'll proceed with scheduling and getting the stone built and all the other stuff that comes along with it.
Tom, do you have a timeline, do you think?
Yeah, after Labor Day.
Yes, well, it's going to take, you know, it's going to take us a while to get a permit. You know what I'm saying? It'll probably be October, the soonest we could start. Yes, October we could start. Yes, it's not something that we could shoot away. And really it's going to depend on how quick we can get the permit, as well as, because we either have to get permission from the homeowner, so to speak, a write-off, not a write-off, signature from homeowners, or wait the 30-day, I think, Heather, for the camera permitting, and how quick they can make the rock plus get the shipping to us. And it'll probably take a month to do the project.
Did we crosswalk this with the engineer that's doing the entire stretch? Did we have conversations with them?
Right now, there is no engineer doing the entire stretch. We were out for an RFP for a consultant to actually do the design and go to the next step.
So, okay, my next follow-up question, you said about 180,000, something like that?
Yes.
Where is that coming? Is that coming from the 5 million, or is that coming from a different fund?
It's coming from the capital.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a question. I'm looking at your aerial photo showing the erosion, and I'm wondering why here. There's no erosion to anywhere near like this over toward the frying pan. And is it possible that the riprap that was placed over to the right is responsible for redirecting the water to create this? So if that is the case, I see you nodding, would doing what we're planning to do here then start eroding the beach further to the west?
Yes, I do. That's why we have engineers.
Figured that.
Remember Mr. Raw, I'm not an engineer.
No, the reason is if you look at the sketch, we're actually taking that wall back toward the river, whereas the existing one just comes around and everything flowing along the shore comes along that and opens and starts forming a whirlpool that eats it out and erodes it out. So that's why the wall goes in straight along Bay Street and then starts coming back out into the river to direct it. It may actually increase the beach area there. I'm not saying it will, it may.
But what will happen is the road and sidewalk will disappear if something is not done. That is the will.
The houses across the street will become waterfront, literally waterfront.
So it's a much-needed project, very important. Our waterfront stabilization is important. Any other questions? Or
I would just ask to expedite it as much as possible because of storm season. That's why I asked about the timeline.
We were hoping to try to do it a little or get it started a little earlier, but coordinating and getting the stone figured out, and it's kind of been a daunting task, as is everything in Southport.
How big are those stones again? Did you say they're the size of a Volkswagen?
Or a Subaru Outback.
The weight.
Yes.
Or an electric pickup truck?
I think the electric, yeah. Only electric. I'll entertain a motion.
So move. Second.
Okay, Alderman Allen, second by Mayor Pro Tem to go ahead and approve this project for the erosion mitigation for West Bay Street. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mayor, I just want to make sure, and that's to approve the funding from the capital fund.
Yeah, funding
Okay.
from the capital fund, yes. Thank you, City Manager. 181,000 plus.
Yeah. It's critical.
And we will get on it expeditiously.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you so much. Next item is the, something that we are all very happy about, is the selection of a contractor for cemetery maintenance. Ironically, the name of the person is Best, Taekwon Best, so it was Best Funeral Service Contractor. So obviously this is the one to choose. And it reminded me of a colleague. He was an ER doctor, and his name, last name was Best. So he could go in and say, "Hi, I'm Dr. Best," and I, of course, will go in and say, "Hi, I'm Dr. Hayden." So it just it was not working well. He and I quit practicing together pretty quickly. So anyway, any comments you gentlemen would like to make on this? I think it's great that, last year we had no one to put in a bid. So this is great. And y'all have done a wonderful job with those cemeteries, but it's wonderful we have someone that can do it.
My question is, how soon can Mr. Best begin doing his best?
Next week.
Yes, we're ready to go.
I have a question about the contract itself, and this came to me like when I was walking up into the door here, so I haven't really read it myself. Does the contract specify all the services the same way for each of the cemeteries, from raking to whatever it is that they need to do?
Well, I will say that I believe Dory was working on the contract.
Yes,
and
Dory's working on it, so we can make sure that that's itemized, because they don't have a sample contract, we'll put it together.
Okay. So
What I normally do is list it how it was in the RFQ, RFP. Just each cemetery would be listed separately, the way that the bid came in.
Yeah, and just for clarity, what the bid says, mowing grass at 2-inch height, debris cleanup, weeding, and blowing clippings off of adjacent fixed objects, which I assume are the headstones.
So if there's branches all over the place, do they leave them?
I would say debris cleanup would indicate picking the branches up.
I just want to make sure that there wasn't, by accident, a loophole between one cemetery and the next cemetery. And if we can, Dorothy, we can talk offline on that.
I have an ethics question, and it is for our attorney. I'm on the board of the John C. Smith Cemetery Foundation. So now we are going to vote on funding a contractor to help us take care of that. I shouldn't vote, should I?
Are you a part of it?
Yeah, I'm on the board.
Okay, you should probably recuse yourself.
This when we were doing that. So, Mr. Mayor, may I be recused from voting on this?
Yes, absolutely, because of your association with John Smith. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. So again, this is a great project. I know they will do a good job. I can't imagine with the name of his company is Best that they would do anything less. And if it's not, Tom, you'll be looking at it after they do their work, I'm sure, or someone will, and make sure that it's done appropriately.
yes, yes.
And that type thing.
And this gentleman, his company already does a cemetery for a municipality in North Carolina.
So.
Plus in the interview, because I had a Teams meeting with him this week to explain to him the importance of keeping these cemeteries perfect. But anyways, he asked such thoughtful questions because he's already in the business. So it just is a win-win, I think.
No, this is a great day for our city in regard to our cemetery. So any further, well, entertain a motion to contract the best funeral cemetery contractor in the country. Is there a second? Second of Alderman Carroll. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously with the recusal of Alderman Davis. So thank you. Item K, committee reports. Alderman Alt?
I have nothing, sir.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Allen?
None, thank you.
Alderman Carroll?
None.
Okay. Alderman Davis, any committee reports?
You got the highlights of the Forestry Committee activity in the presentation of the Tree Champion certificate. The committee is working hard to try to keep this going on a very regular basis. The committee really would like to hear from the public when you know that somebody's taking extra efforts to save a tree, especially when they're building, and seek variances or work on a plan that doesn't take down a tree. So the committee's been working on that and is also advancing the public awareness of the Live Oak Society, which trees belong to, not people. And again, that is nominations from the public, and then it's advanced on. And I think that we have a chance of getting a lot of them and then taking over the society. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But the our trees deserve to be in it. All they have to be is 8 feet around at a height of, I believe it's 5 feet. Are they 8 feet around?
It's 4 feet.
4 feet? 4
yeah.
feet height? Okay. So that's a lot of our trees, and they should all be in the society.
Thank you, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Just a reminder that the planning board's regular meeting will be here next Thursday evening at 6 o'clock.
And ABC board will meet August 23rd due to travel and vacations, and we'll be meeting at the ABC store. Next will be the item L, manager's report.
Yes, very quickly. You have in front of you the latest capital project, which is bigger than ever. So I want to let everybody know that the staff is really busy. We have right now 38 major projects going on in the city of Southport. It's huge. And I have to tell you, the staff has done an awesome job on keeping up with these. This is on the website. If anybody wants to look at this, we update it every single month. It's just overwhelming how much is going on in this tiny little town of Southport, but all things that are very important. Also, the assistant city manager handed out a list of when all these bids are due in the next month or two. These are all the projects that you've allowed us through the budget process to move forward with, and we want to make sure that we're getting them done as quickly as possible. So this list should probably reach 50 pretty soon. With everything we've got going on. On the homeless matter, I did want to just say that the chief and I were talking, and I'll tell you, having Sally learn it at our last workshop was so helpful, and he and his staff are working very closely with Sally with individuals that they are aware of in this community. Sally and the county staff are trying to work one-on-one with these people to try to get them the assistance that we possibly can. So it's just been a really great working relationship since the workshop. So not only did the public learn a lot, the staff learned a lot. So we are working on that. And then I always go through a list of anniversaries, but we have 2 sheets of them today, and the time is late. So look in this month's newsletter, and you will find that we have over, I'd say, 15 employees who are having their anniversaries this month of August. Must have been a popular month. And if you ever see them around, please give them a big congratulations. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, excellent report. And we did have a wonderful workshop, and we do have a lot going on in Southport, and that's great. We're moving forward every day. We're moving forward. I just have brief remarks. The Southport Police Department has their National Night Out Friday, August 18th, 2023. This is going to be at Taylor Field Park from 5:30 to 7:30. It's part of the National Night Out. It's going to be an annual community building program that promotes police community partnership and neighborhood camaraderie. So I hope you'll be able to go to that. And then on Saturday, August 19th, the Southport Unity Committee at Cabinets Park, they're having a back-to-school event, and that will be at noon. Also, the Crab Derby will be over Labor Day weekend, so make sure you stop by and see that. And then I talked to Chief Drew today to make sure the time and the place and that type of thing concerning the September 11th memorial ceremony. It will be on the day, 9 a.m. Monday at the fire department, honoring our, of course, our fire department, police department, and EMS. So that's always a very moving ceremony. So looking forward to seeing everyone there for that. And that's what I have. So thank y'all for this meeting today and your attention. Staff reports are in your packet. Board comments. Alderman Alt.
Nothing, sir.
Thank you. Alderman Allen.
No, thank you.
Alderman Carroll.
No, thank you.
Alderman Davis.
Where's the Crab Derby?
Crab Derby is at the City Pier.
The city pier or the old dock?
City dock. Well, I don't know. I think it's at the old dock. I don't know. Last one I attended, it was maybe it was the Captain Charlie fishing tournament. It was at the Crab Derby's at the dock. Okay, City Dock. Good. It's closer to where I can find it. Good.
I just want to say, crabs are biting at the old dock. I see people pulling them up all the time. So, good time to have.
Thank you for that. And Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I was going to have some comments, but I'm not. But the only other thing is I would like to ask the city manager, I know we are going to be having a workshop or a town hall about the homeless conversation, but I would like to add that in the interim as maybe a stopgap measure to make, I want our citizens more comfortable. I know that our police department isn't flush with people, but I know he has access to part-time people as well. I think it would be helpful if we could have more police presence around, not in a threatening way, but in an observation way, so to help our citizens. And I'll leave that at your discretion, but I just wanted to ask that.
All right, thank you. So and thank you, board, and thank you, citizens. I'm sure most of you will be leaving. We're not adjourning. We are going into closed session. This is NC General Statute 143-318A5, and this is concerning real estate, the price and other material terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase. And then we will continue the closed session. Will be General Statute 143-318.11, 6, and that's concerning personnel. So we will go into closed. I need a motion to go into closed session. Obviously, unanimous motion and second. All in favor? Okay, we'll now go into closed session. Thank you.
What the? Oh, these are still on.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Okay, Alderman Carroll, second by Mayor Pro Tem. A very good discussion. Thank you, board. And I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn. Alderman Carroll, Alderman Allen, all in favor? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.